that right now, producing the program back in our Broadway Media Studios in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Happy Tuesday to you. And as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. We have got a lot to do on the show today. Week 1 of the NFL culminated with a Monday Night Football game that was an eyesore for about 3 quarters. And then young J.J. McCarthy announced his arrival on the scene with a dynamic fourth-quarter performance under center for the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings were able to beat the Bears in Chicago 27-24. A lot of conversation today about concerning Caleb Williams, year 2 for the Chicago Bears after being the number 1 overall pick out of Southern California a year ago. And it looked last night a lot like it did last year. Some decent moments, but overall pretty inconsistent, missing a lot of throws, a lot of mistakes, a lot of penalties as well. But what a week 1 of NFL football, really start to finish, dating to last week on Thursday when the Cowboys kind of surprised everybody, taking Philadelphia right down to the wire. So week 1 in the books, week 2 ahead. The NFL is back. We've got a good one on Thursday night at Lambeau as Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders take on Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. So a good week 2 slate ahead. Obviously a full slate of Sunday games. We got a Monday night double dip next week. It's the Buccaneers and the Texans, then the Chargers and the Raiders. A Chargers-Raiders game is at Allegiant in Las Vegas. Both those teams coming off wins. The Texans got, the Bucs got a win. We've got Eagles-Chiefs next week. We've got a lot of good games on the slate for pro football. Bad news for the San Francisco 49ers. George Kittle to the IR. And so that means he's out for a number of different weeks. So we'll keep you up to date. Also, Brock Purdy is questionable for week 2 after taking a bit of a knock in week 1. So a lot of NFL storylines to get to. A lot of local players playing really well over the weekend in the world of pro football. We are high speed ahead to college football coming up this weekend. Of course, Utah on the road. It is the Porter Larson Bowl. It is in Laramie, Wyoming. Utah is a healthy 25-point favorite over the Wyoming Cowboys. We're going to learn a little bit more about Wyoming on the show today. War Memorial Stadium. Wyoming's won both their games so far, and if we're going to talk about, not really understanding what sort of hand we've been dealt just yet for other teams as it pertains to the lack of stout opponents they've played, well, we should give Wyoming credit for at least winning a couple of games. We'll talk about it on the show. We'll talk about it all week. Hopeful and confident that Saturday will look a lot like the Saturday of last weekend. Hopefully Utah will have this pretty much dialed in by halftime, get some of the starters on ice, get the hell out of Dodge, get healthy, and get ready for conference play, which gets rolling coming up the week after next against, obviously, Tech. So we've got week 3 of college football coming up on Thursday. It'll start with NC State and Wake Forest. Good little Friday slate, including some Big 12 games, Colorado, Houston, K-State, Arizona. I think that is not a Big 12 conference game. If I remember correctly, that game was scheduled when Arizona was a Pac-12 school. So we've seen a couple of games with that dynamic. So we'll see kind of how it goes down. But the Big 12 really under a microscope in a lot of different ways. It has been, I'll be kind and say it's been mixed results, although in my opinion it's been not great, Bob, as the kids would say. So on Friday we get Colorado, Houston, we get K-State, Arizona. But again, that K-State, Arizona game, if my memory serves me correctly, is not a Big 12 game. And then on Saturday, of course, Utah, Wyoming, 6 o'clock kick on CBS Sports Network. And, of course, you can hear the game on our radio station. Our pregame coverage with Porter will begin at 2 o'clock on Saturday. So set your alarm for that. Baylor coming off a big win at SMU will welcome in Samford. They'll win by 1 million. Texas Tech, who is 2-0 and have put up 1 million points on 2 horrible teams, welcomes in, unfortunately, another horrible team. I'm not sure how much we'll learn about Texas Tech as they take on Oregon State, Pittsburgh, and West Virginia in Morgantown. It'll be Northwestern State against Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's kind of an interesting, sneaky team in this conference so far. We'll talk more Big 12 football throughout the show. Iowa State, who has the most impressive resume in the conference so far, is on the road at Arkansas State. They're going to win by 1 million. Abilene Christian is in Fort Worth to take on TCU, who I think is a really good team this year. And then Arizona State will attempt to get back into the area where most people think they can either compete for or win the Big 12 championship against a really bad Texas State team. So some good games, some dog games. We just need to get to conference play in order to kind of understand exactly what the deal is with some of these teams. The playoff odds have been released, the way too early playoff odds for the National Hockey League, and your Utah Mammoth are favored to make the postseason this year. The rookies will report tomorrow. We're 8 days away from the vets in town, so it's almost time for hockey season. And according to the boys in Vegas, the Utah Mammoth favored to potentially make the postseason this year after kind of knocking on the door last year before it kind of fell apart. The Big 12 actually came out and acknowledged that the officiating crew made it a mistake in the Kansas-Missouri game, which is something we don't see very often at all. So a lot of college football and pro football storylines on the program today. RSL is back in action coming up on Saturday against Sporting KC. It has been the weirdest 3-week break in late summer, early fall for a Major League Soccer team. So 7 matches left below the playoff line. I would categorize Saturday as a must-win for RSL should they want to qualify for at least the play-in tournament. U.S. men's national team will try to answer some questions against Japan. Not sure if Diego Luna will be in the starting 11, but as soon as we have that released, we will bring it to you. We are only 9 months away from the World Cup, and this national team is not close, at least as far as what they've shown on the field, to being ready to compete at the highest of levels as our region welcomes in the world's finest as it pertains to the world of soccer. So World Cup right around the corner. More information about this weird story concerning the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. There's some new information about what he asked for when he signed with the Toronto Raptors, ownership in the Maples and such. His uncle's running the show, and I think it's a really, really bad move because it seems like his uncle's behind all this stuff that's really shady and untoward and below board. But not a lot of pro basketball storylines. A interview with a lady named Haley Sawyer is making the rounds. Haley is the USC beat writer for the SoCal News Group. And if you listen to the show, first of all, thank you for that. Second of all, I talk a lot about, I essentially ignore the coaches poll. I rarely even look at it. I mean, polls in general, when it comes to the beginning of the season, they're just fodder for conversation. You don't learn a whole lot. And the coaches poll, historically speaking, has been summarily dismissed because most coaches admit themselves they don't even do it. They just hand it over to their SID or somebody in their sporting office. And I want to be clear, I don't blame them. I think it's stupid that they're even asked to do it. These guys have way more important things to do than try to analyze who the 17th best team in the country is. Like, what do we do with South Florida after they won a couple? Who gives a rip? They're coaching. They should not do it week in and week out. But the AP poll, for lack of a better term, is always thought to be more of like a sacred opportunity for media members that do grind on college football. I want to be clear, I'm not complaining. I do not want to vote. I am not going to sit down and watch Texas State take on some random Indiana State opponent or Colgate versus Houston. I'll watch the games that we need to cover on the station, and I'll watch Utah and BYU and Utah State. I'll watch the Big 12, then I'll watch the marquee matchups. But I'm not going to sit down and grind on Central Michigan Townsend, okay? And so I don't want an AP vote. I want to be very clear. But if you have one, you have to take it seriously because it is the poll that most people look at as something that's a little more accurate, juxtaposed to the coaches poll. And last week, South Florida beat Florida. And South Florida is off to this great start after beating Boise State. And this young lady, Haley Sawyer, who covers USC for the SoCal News Group, moved Florida up 2 spots and didn't even have South Florida in her top 25 poll. And bless her heart, she gave an interview today for, I think it was some podcast or a blogger or whatever that tweeted at her. And she essentially said out loud, she essentially did not say the quiet part out loud, but basically implied that she didn't even know that South Florida had beat Florida. Among other things, she said, quote, "I don't want to go too much into my process or logic. It's really fun, but it doesn't matter in the end." She sounds like the voter who voted in the presidential election and didn't care because everybody else votes too. Like, you cannot approach your job this way, and it just shines negatively on a poll that most of us use to try to figure out exactly the landscape of college football, which, as I say all the time, is the hardest landscape in sports to predict. which is why when we do like power rankings, which is why when we talk about Big 12, you can only go off what you've seen and what the results say. You can never go off your projections because your projections most of the time are wrong. Like almost everybody's most of the time are wrong. Look at the Big 12 last year. You can only go off the games that have been played. And that's how I try to do it on the show when we bring you like our Big 12 power rankings and things like that. So some interesting fodder going on social today in that direction. Good guest list on a Tuesday afternoon. Keith Kelly will be our first guest. He's the play-by-play voice of the Wyoming Cowboys. So we'll learn more about Utah's opponent coming up on Saturday in Laramie. Are you making the road trip? Are you going to head on up? It's not a far drive. It is the Porter Larson Bowl. So you should head up and do that. We're going to bring in our buddy Quinn McLean from Sumer Sports to talk more college football. Quinn joined us a week ago. Coach Bill Busch, who coached at Utah, other places, Nebraska, longtime college coach, knows Bronco Mendenhall, knows Kyle Whittingham, knows everybody really in state. Coach Busch was one of the people mainly responsible for recruiting one Alex Smith once upon a time to play football at the University of Utah. We'll see what Coach Busch has seen from Utah, BYU and Utah State through 2 games, and then we'll talk about Big 12 and what's next. Spencer Linton, our buddy from BYU TV. BYU is on a bye, which is just the dumbest thing in the world. Week 3 bye is silly. They'll have another bye later on the calendar. I don't think college teams should have multiple byes. I don't think college teams should have byes this early. But we'll talk with Spencer about what we've seen from Kalani and his group over the first couple of games and learn a little bit more about BYU, who, like Utah, so far has looked very, very good. So Keith Kelly will join us today. We'll be joined by Quinn McLean. We'll be joined by Bill Busch, Spencer Linton, me, Spence Checketts, live today at the Dish Professionals. Once again, it's 801-424-DISH. That's the number. You guys know it by now. 801-424-DISH. You can come on by and say what's up as well if you want to stop by and check out the new equipment, meet Ryan, see how everything works. But as I say all the time, if you're a sports fan without Dish, you are doing it wrong. They have great internet solutions where you can just simply save a ton of money, and a ton of money every month, compounded over a number of months and years, saves you thousands. I've done it. I made the switch about 6 years ago. I fought it for a while, then Ryan convinced me to do it, and he was right, I was wrong. So we'll tell you how you can make the switch and save some money on your internet as well. And back in our studios, we'll call it, 6-7 miles northwest is how I'm going to pinpoint that, in our Broadway Media Studios, is Porter Larson. It is Porter Larson week with Utah, Wyoming coming up. Are you juiced?
Is that official?
It is. I just coined it just now.
Excited for it. I am. I'm excited to see a fun college football environment in a fun place, Spencer. And I think Utah obviously should get out of there with the win. But a lot of fodder leading up to it, a lot of fun stuff leading up to it. A former Mountain West and maybe even some other conferences way back in the day, partner of Utah's. I always hold those guys fondly, especially the Wyoming Cowboys. So I'm excited for it. Should be fun. And a bunch of other stuff in the college football, NBA, all over the place we can get to on this Tuesday.
Oh, is Baby Boy too young to remember the WAC? Is Baby Boy too young to remember the Western Athletic Conference?
A little bit. I know they were. I know they overlapped a little bit there. But yeah, most of my Wyoming, Utah memories were definitely Mountain West.
Fair enough. All right, our first guest, Keith Kelly, the play-by-play voice of the Wyoming Cowboys. We'll learn more about Keith on the program today. But before Keith stops by, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Had a fun night with Prize Picks last night. Just if you haven't heard, all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you could win up to 2,000 times your cash. So last night I rolled with a 4-player parlay. I just needed 0.5 more rushing yards from Aaron Jones. On a $20 parlay, I would have won like $400. But he did not give me the final 0.5. I nailed the other 3. It's a really fun way to, utilize your knowledge on sports and football to maybe turn it into some cash. And it's a lot easier than some of the other sports books or platforms, so you don't have to learn any of the other verbiage. If you don't know what a money line is or an over-under or spread or whatever, this is easier. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And to celebrate the return of pro football, Prize Picks is basically giving you a free win. It's called the max discount. So far, they've given you Dak Prescott 0.5 passing yards, Lamar Jackson 0.5 passing yards, and for week 2, they're giving you Travis Kelce 0.5 receiving yards. So if Travis Kelce catches a pass for a yard, you win. And then you can go from there, utilize the platform, see if you like it. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, the weekend ahead in college football holds some intrigue depending on the matchups you're looking at. I'll continue to say I'm really anxious to get into conference play. You know, and I want to be clear here. Got some feedback from some folk. It's not BYU's fault that Stanford stinks. It's not Utah's fault that I think UCLA stinks. Like, these games were scheduled a number of different years ago. And best laid plans, you did schedule a couple of P4 teams. I mean, Stanford under David Shaw was a stout program. UCLA, it's been a while since they've been consistently good. I thought Chip Kelly would get that thing going in the right direction. But the problem is, best laid plans aside, what we have is the reality is I think UCLA is really bad, and I think Stanford is very far away. So after 2 games, I feel good about both Utah and BYU. I think there's a chance that coming up in October when these 2 teams play, they'll both be clean. And if that's the deal, they'll both probably be in the top 15 or so, and maybe College Game Day comes to town. Who knows? So I haven't seen anything overly concerning. If I'm BYU, I'm still concerned that at some point a true freshman quarterback is probably going to cost us something. And if we're honest, against Stanford, the offense was just okay, not great. The defense, you know, as I continue to say, BYU is talked about these days the way Utah's been talked about under Witt for 20 years. The defense just gets the benefit of the doubt under Jay Hill, and they deserve it because they're that good. So Saturday, BYU on a bye. It's dumb. A week 3 bye is stupid. It's way too early to have a bye. They have another bye later on. College teams should not have multiple byes. I've been on that for years. And Utah's at Wyoming for a 6 o'clock kick. CBS Network in Laramie. Our pregame coverage begins at 2 o'clock. And I'm just hoping that Saturday, this weekend, looks like Saturday last weekend. Now, Wyoming's going to be a better test than Cal Poly. Utah's a 25-point favorite. Let's just get this thing done at halftime and put Devin on ice and then just relax on our way home from War Memorial Stadium in Laramie. At least that's my hope. But college football comes your way week 3. And, of course, week 2, the NFL will get going on Thursday night with a real good one. It's the Commanders and Packers at Lambeau in Green Bay, Wisconsin. All right, we're going to learn more about Wyoming coming up in just a little bit. Their play-by-play voice will join us. His name is Keith Kelly. Excited for that. But we're live today at the Dish Professionals, and Ryan has built me my own office.
Yes, I have.
Now, next time, can I get like a name placard when I walk in, like Spence Checketts on the?
I'll get it ordered.
I'm just playing with you, man. How are you? Good to see you.
Great to see you. Excited right now. We got both teams are winning, and it's awesome.
Good to have football back. I would imagine you spent your weekend much like I did, consuming college and pro football, right?
Yeah, lots and lots of games.
For sure.
That's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, and I had access to all of them, and I've had access to all of them for a number of years because you convinced me to finally make the switch. After like a decade of telling me I should do it, I did it about 6 years ago. So I made the switch to Dish. I left my old setup in the background.
Yep.
I've had every game that I've wanted since then, and I've saved a grip of money. So let's talk about the promotions that you have for people that are interested in switching to Dish today.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. We just got notification DirecTV is doing a price increase, and I know the one for cable sounds like it's going to be in a month and a half or so. But so this is your moment. If you want to pick up the phone and call us, it's a guaranteed slam dunk. With the $11 rate increase, I can probably guarantee you it's $44 a month cheaper than what you're currently paying. It's probably a lot more than that. And you're going to get a bigger DVR, more features, like we talked about, has all the streaming apps. And with this awesome promotion with Dish, you've got the 2-year promotion, 2-year price guarantee. Dish is going to allow us to give you their top package free for 3 months. Plus, we're going to throw in the multi-sports pack and the best football channel out there, the NFL Red Zone, although it has commercials now.
Yeah, it does, but it wasn't. I was when I saw the announcement, I was terrified.
Yeah.
But I watched it on Sunday. It really wasn't that bad.
So you go to the bathroom.
They snuck a couple in here or there, but in totality, I was afraid it was like, because my one beef with pro football, the NFL is the best TV show on sports, but my one beef with it is all the commercial breaks, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I DVR the games I really want to watch.
Yeah.
So the red zone, it wasn't as adversely affected as I was afraid it would be, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about the commercials. I watched both Sunday night and Monday night games long after it started.
Yep.
I started watching it, and I'm just burning through those commercials, and it's such a neat thing. And with Dish, it automatically records your locals, so those games are just on. I didn't have to think about it. They're just on the DVR. I can watch them, and it's easy.
Yep. Okay, so let's review. Today only, you get $100 cash back.
Yes.
It's not a personal check from Ryan, but he'll sign it for you. But that's $100 in your pocket. 3 months, no charge for the top package for Dish. 2-year price guarantee, so it never goes up. And if you were with another platform, you know how big that is because it always seems to go up with nothing added.
Yes.
We talked about ultimately the auto hopper. If you're watching it, it'll auto hop commercials. The other thing I love about it, and I did this over the weekend because some of the other games are on some of the streaming services.
Yeah.
Streaming services on Dish, it's on the guide like it's a channel. Okay.
Yes.
So what that means is if you're listening, you don't hit input 2, input 3 to get to Prime and then enter your password. It's on the guide as if it's just another channel.
Dish did a great job making that super simple and integrating the whole thing. And YouTube is one of the first things they did, and that's why Dish was able to ink that deal where you can actually get the Sunday ticket for about half off right now if you sign up with Dish. So great opportunity there. But yeah, they've integrated the whole system. It's cheaper than YouTube TV. It's cheaper than cable and DirecTV by a long, long ways. And so you're doing yourself a disfavor if you don't pick up the phone and just take advantage of free money.
And also, as I say every time I'm here, if you think you're paying too much for your internet, you are. Okay, so if you go out to the mailbox first of the month, you get the letter or you get the email and you say, I'm paying $70 or $80 for this, you're hemorrhaging money. Like you are spending way too much. So you have some internet solutions as well.
We just added another provider. This is a provider that covers Utopia. So we're completely covered with fiber, Utopia. And I say this because you probably have an overpriced fiber bill and you can switch to a different provider, use the exact same fiber and pay $20, $30 a month less. And it's really that easy. Call us up. We have an internet solution guaranteed for you. So there's awesome promotions where you get a month free. There's credits. There's all sorts of cool things that you can take advantage of. If you combine this together, it really is thousands and thousands of dollars. If you call us today and get the $100 cash back on top of everything.
Yeah, as I always say, I know we hit you with 10 or 15 talking points. The best thing to do is call and ask questions. They'll walk you through. They'll see where you're at, tell you what they can do for you. So if you've been waiting, today's the day to pick up the phone and dial 801-424-DISH. That's 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Ryan, you are the man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, we'll catch a break, and we'll bring in the voice of the Wyoming Cowboys, Keith Kelly, coming up on the other side on a Tuesday edition of The Drive, and it's good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700. of us. You can also get a hold of us at 801-424-DISH. That's 801-424-DISH. Come on by and say hi. All right, Utah football, 2-0 so far. Next challenge will be the Wyoming Cowboys up in Laramie, coming up at 6 o'clock on Saturday. Our pregame coverage, as your home of the Utes, will begin at 2 o'clock with Porter Larson, who is over the moon for this matchup. And our next guest is the play-by-play voice for the Wyoming Cowboys. Good to catch up with Keith Kelly on a Tuesday afternoon. Keith, happy Tuesday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. What's going on?
Well, we're just excited for this game coming up. I mean, both these teams are 2-0, and Utah's off to a great start. But I want to hone in on Wyoming, the team, obviously, that you're calling games for. Akron, Northern Iowa, 2 wins so far. I'll just ask you a macro question, Keith. What do you feel like you know about the Wyoming Cowboys after 2 games?
They're a lot deeper. They've acquired a lot more depth than they had last year. Injuries really limited things last season when they went 3-9. They made it a point in the portal with freshmen and everything. They were going to build this team the right way and do so with depth. And you've seen it already on defense against Akron. They played 22 guys on defense, and there was 0 drop-off from the 1s and 2s. The last time they played anybody anywhere that close had to go back to their 9-win season when the most they played in a game that won the blowout was like 17 guys. So they're building quality depth. And then against Northern Iowa, they threw the ball. 11 different players caught a pass, and then you had 7 different guys run the football against the Panthers. The competition isn't, like UCLA. I don't, Utah's played Cal Poly and UCLA. I don't think UCLA is great. I think they're really poorly coached. But I know people look at Wyoming's competition. But it's great to see the depth that they're building. That's the biggest thing I've taken out of these first 2 games.
So, Keith, I know injuries are a sensitive thing in college football, but I wonder if you have an update on Caden Anderson, who had to leave the game, and I heard he was taken to the hospital. Are we expecting Caden to play coming up on Saturday?
That was the first question after Jay Savell did his initial outlook against Utah, looking back against Northern Iowa. What is Caden Anderson's, the prospects of him playing? He said, first thing he said is Caden is fine. They did everything out of precaution. They had to check all the internal stuff. He took a vicious hit, guys. I mean, it was a corner blitz, and he got hit. It looked initially from our vantage point and then replays like it was on the shoulder or collarbone area, but it was more maybe a little bit lower. I've heard anything from bruised ribs to like abdominal contusion type of thing, but they did range of motion. Jay Savell said that he saw Monday morning doing range of motion things, that he would throw on Monday, and if he wasn't a full participant in practice on Monday, that he would be today. And the expectation is that he will play Saturday against Utah, barring any range of motion or pain setbacks.
And tell us about this kid and what sort of quarterback he is. And let's just go off your report and assume that he's ready to go and assume that he'll be as healthy as possible. What sort of player is Caden Anderson?
I mean, he's a true pocket-type passer. He's from South Lake Carroll High School in Texas, in that Denton area, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. And he replaced Quinn Ewers after Quinn Ewers was there. It's just a quarterback factory. He knows what he's doing. The thing that people backed off of him because he went through 2 ACL tears. Wyoming stayed with him. He feels like he owes that to Wyoming to stick around as well and all that stuff. He came on back half of last year. His first start was the New Mexico game when they beat Devin Dampier and the Lobos 45-42. Then they were beating Boise State at the half in Laramie, and then he got knocked out of the game with a concussion and didn't play in the second half. He ended up getting beat 17-13 to Boise State. He played a half against Utah State before that New Mexico game, and the half he played, Wyoming's offense really picked things up. He definitely brings a different aspect. He's a very good thrower of the football. He can run it, but he's not going to really – that's not his strength. But he can elude rush. He's very savvy in the pocket, very, very accurate with deep balls. Just a really, really solid quarterback who's still learning the position at this level.
So, Keith, it's been a minute since Utah and Wyoming did battle down in Laramie. It's been since 2010, and I'm old enough to remember the WAC. I'm old enough to remember the Mountain West. I'm old enough to remember when these two teams would play quite often. But since most of us have not been to Laramie for a matchup between these two teams for about 15 years, what sort of I think there's going to be a healthy Ute contingent. You know, the move from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 changed a lot of the road trip kind of dynamics for the fan base because, in the Pac-12, a lot of the markets were close. Big 12, you're asked to travel quite a bit. Obviously, Laramie is just a stone's throw from Salt Lake City. But what sort of atmosphere do Cowboy fans bring these days in that stadium?
I mean, it's really, really good, guys. 2 years ago, they went 7-0 at home, and that included a win over Texas Tech in double overtime. They've beaten Missouri in Laramie. This is where this is a tough one for ranked teams coming to Laramie. I'm not predicting anything by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying it's been hard for teams to come to Laramie against decent Wyoming teams to come away with victories. They know they've been in games. The atmosphere is so good. We had 25,000. I mean, there's been a lot of improvements made to War Memorial Stadium, but those improvements have cut down on the actual size and capacity there. It was near sellout for Northern Iowa. I have a feeling it's going to be a sellout for Utah, the Utah game, and it will be, to start off, and if Wyoming can make it a game, it will be an intense atmosphere at War Memorial Stadium. They play. You take last year's side; they typically play well at home, and I don't see why that wouldn't change on Saturday when the Utes. I know they're excited about Utah coming in, especially a ranked Utah team.
So you referenced the New Mexico game that Wyoming won, and Devin Dampier went wild. I mean, that was a shootout. So you're familiar with Utah's quarterback. And look, through two games, and you referenced this, Keith, I think UCLA stinks, and Cal Poly is Cal Poly. Yeah. I mean, it's not Utah's fault that UCLA stinks. It's not BYU's fault that I don't think Stanford's very good. You schedule years ago, and then you hope that when the games actually come, it's an accurate test. So take that at face value for what it's worth. But through two games, he has looked really dynamic, Keith. And as you know, around here, there's a little PTSD at the quarterback position with the inability for Cameron Rising to stay upright and healthy over the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. So we're very excited about Devin. He comes to us from New Mexico with his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck. So what sort of challenge do you think he will pose, and how does Wyoming respond to it defensively?
I don't know. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches that he's got to work with. I mean, you got guys playing both ways. It's just wild. The frustrating part with Devin is you could have the perfect defense called. He goes off script and you're your host. And that's the part that scares me the most, is his ability to create outside of maybe a called play, because he's so good at it and he's so athletic. And now you throw in the accuracy that he's got. My goodness. I don't know how teams are going to have a lot of success slowing this offense down. I just don't.
Now, defensively, and again, we will talk about all of this with the caveat continuously about the opponents that both these two teams have played and whether or not they've been good tests. But the numbers indicate Wyoming through two games has been very stout on defense. What has stood out most to you?
Again, I go back to what I said, the depth, but their ability to put pressure on the quarterback without sending a blitz has been pretty impressive. Their front four has been pretty darn good. Now, I say that knowing that Utah has two of the best tackles maybe in the Big 12 or maybe in the country. I mean, they're just loaded up front. They're so physical. That's going to make things really, really hard for the Cowboys. They might have to bring pressure. That will leave an inexperienced group in the secondary to cover one-on-one. That might be a problem. But right now it's their ability to bring pressure. The linebackers with Braden Johnson, Evan Eller, Ethan Stulsatz, Gary Rutherford, they've been really, really good. There were a lot of question marks with the back seven because they lost so much and then brought a lot of new in, and it was inexperience in terms of playing at the FBS level. They've been pretty good. Tyrese Boss at corner is as physical of a corner as you'll see, and they've had really, really good safety play. Andrew Johnson, his senior year, he's from right here. I live in Cheyenne. He's from Cheyenne Central High School, and he waited his time. He's had a really good start to his season. So I really feel like the question mark has been solved in the secondary, and then Wyoming's ability just to put pressure with their front four has been really, really good so far through 2 games.
How has Wyoming been affected with the ever-changing landscape in college football? You know, it's always interesting to me because Utah football this year has a bit of a different, I would say, pressure level in our market. Last year, the pressure was steeped in everybody picking Utah to win the Big 12. I mean, not just locally, but nationally. And in Vegas, the odds said Utah should either win it or have something to say about it. And certainly the lack of health was the main impetus to a season that Coach Witt himself called a disaster and a debacle. So this year, I perceive the pressure to be answering some questions around the marketplace as to whether or not Coach Witt and his staff have adjusted to what the new reality of the sport is. And the early returns are really, really good. And I think if they stay healthy, they'll have something to say about it. But whether it's pay for play, NIL, transfer portal, do you feel like the Cowboys have been able to accurately adjust the way they need to stay competitive?
I think they're doing what they can, guys. Did Utah fully fund their rev share? Is it 20? Are they doing the 20.5, or do you know?
Yep.
They did.
No, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just curious. I figured they probably did. Most P4s are going to do that. So Wyoming is at like the $2.5 million range, I think, when you add it all in, plus some other NIL opportunities that they are offering. Yeah, they're doing what they can. Look, Jay Savell had a top 10 list of players he wanted to keep. They kept 9 of them. The only one that didn't stay was Harrison Whaley, and now he's, I think, 4th or 5th string at Virginia at the running back spot. He probably would have started at Wyoming. He's not there anymore. But they kept 9 of their top 10 guys, and that was with a lot of deceitful folks going in DMs and things like that, trying to lure players away. They wanted to stick around. They like what was happening at Wyoming. As far as transfers goes, they tried the power level transfers last year, the first year, to fill in the gaps, and it just didn't work. It didn't work. So I can vividly remember this after Wyoming played Arizona State in the opener last year and got beat up pretty good. Jay was talking to Kenny Dillingham, and Kenny went lower levels to bring a lot of players in. And that's what Coach Savell did. They went FCS, heck, even some Division II, maybe even some JCs, and those guys are making impacts with Wyoming. They're going to go get guys with chips on their shoulder that fit this Wyoming profile, this blue-collar, type of profile that Wyoming has had, that Craig Bohl brought in, more than a decade ago. And it's worked so far, and I really like that thought process as opposed to trying maybe to get a quick fix and get guys with chips on their shoulder, and those guys are making impacts.
So you referenced ultimately when it comes to the offensive attack, Caden Anderson being more of a classic pocket passer, a guy that, is somebody who's going to stand tall in the pocket. Tell me about his targets, the weapons on offense that the quarterback seems to have his eye on so far.
I mean, the 2 big ones are tight end John Michael Gillenborg. He's the best tight end in the Mountain West, in my opinion, and people might say has the brown and gold glasses, but he was one that people were trying to get last year. And it's, they were coming. There was full court press after J. Mike, and he's an NFL caliber tight end. He's first and foremost a go-to guy. Chris Durr Jr. Had 7 catches for 146 and a touchdown against Akron. He followed that up with 4 catches and 50-plus yards and a touchdown against Northern Iowa. Get him in space, he's going to make a guy miss, and he's going to get a big game. But you also have Jalen Sargent. Jalen Sargent's a guy. He's roommates with Caden Anderson. They have a pretty good rapport. He's gotten off to a slow start this year, but he was his really downfield target last year. And, they're bringing some guys up. Dion DeBlanc is a true freshman that's still trying to grasp this offense, but they've got him at punt return, and he's pretty explosive. Bryson Brantley. Jackson Holman transferred from Arizona, where he didn't play a ton, but he's brought a different type of ability to Wyoming and his ability. He was big in the Akron game. So they've got guys to throw to, but J. Mike and Chris Stewart Jr. will be the big names to watch.
The Jalen Sargent's a Utah kid, isn't he? Is he from Logan?
Yes, he is, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's from Logan.
That's right. A couple of Utah kids on the roster. You know, it's interesting, Keith, when I was looking up the roster to start the prep for the week, the footprint that Wyoming is able to recruit from is all across the country. You got Florida kids, you got Texas kids, you got Maryland kids, obviously a few Wyoming kids, Utah as well. You know, so they have been able to really expand the footprint to not just be regional, but it feels like they're recruiting all over the country, yeah?
They are recruiting all over the country. They really like going into Texas. They've been into California as well. Here's the deal, guys. Jay Savell says, if we can get them to Laramie, and this may sound odd, he said, if we can get them to Laramie, we're going to keep them. And I think his first recruiting class was 75 to 80% hit rate of players on campus, getting them on campus, 75 to 80% eventually signed at Wyoming. And they would come on game days. I think that was after the 7-0 season at home. The atmosphere plays such a huge part of it. They see it. They want to play in that, and they have an opportunity to play. I know it sounds crazy to see. Laramie is the hardest place in the country maybe to bring guys in, but they see what's potentially being built here, and they see an opportunity to maybe play right away as well and be developed into something. And look, we all get it this time of year. If you can get a guy for 1 or 2 years and he makes a big impact and he wants to go off and do something else, that's just the way it is. But if you can develop him into something like that, you're going to continue to get guys that may be able to play right away that are maybe looking to go somewhere else after a couple years or something like that. It's the way it is, right? I mean, you're a developmental program maybe for somebody else coming on the way up.
You've been doing this a long time. If we pan back and look at the sport from a macro viewpoint, it's clear that they are attempting to put guardrails in place. It's a little bit like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube, but I mean, better late than never, I guess. Coach Witt talks about this all the time, and I tend to agree with him. I believe that at some point we will see basically an NFL model with two different conferences, call it Big Ten, SEC, or probably rename them with, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 teams, 30 in each. I don't know what it's going to look like. I do feel like we're heading in that direction. Wyoming probably wouldn't be considered in that equation. If we do head in that direction, is there any concern up there about what the future of the sport could look like?
I mean, look, this will probably make a lot of Wyoming fans mad, but if you're realistic about it, people we call them the unwashed, right? The unwashed 6 conferences. You got the Power 4 and the unwashed 6. I'm not throwing the new Pack Stabber conference in there, the Pac-12. We call them the Pack Stabbers here that are leaving the Mountain West. But they aren't going to be part of anything at that level anyways. I think right now, yes, Boise State made the CFP last year. They changed the rules already after the first year to keep that from getting a first-round bye, a G6 conference from getting a first-round bye. They changed the rules for that. I really feel like if you're going to do a complete split and you have your 40 to 60, like you said, and I completely agree with you, that's what it's probably going to look like. The rest – play for your own national championship, right? I mean, there's inventory to be had out there. Play for your own national championship so you're playing for something. Maybe bring in a couple of the top FCS programs as well to help go along with you and put together a pretty good league and try and play for something. Because right now, what does Wyoming have a chance to play for? Maybe if they win the league and go 12-0, maybe they get a spot in the CFP. That's maybe. I mean, the strength of schedule is going to keep them out, or something like that is going to keep them out. So why not play for something as opposed to nothing against the bowl system? I love the bowl games. It's fun to go to them and do those games. But right now you're playing for a Mountain West title and an outside shot at a CFP right now. That's all you're playing for.
Yeah. Keith, for our Ute fan listeners, and we are the flagship home of the Utes, so we have a lot of Ute fans listening, that are making the trek to Laramie. Let's get some food recommendations, some must-see sites in Laramie. Where do we need to be going, Keith?
Okay, if you're an outdoorsy person, if you get there early enough, drive up to the Snowy Range. It's about a half an hour west of Laramie. Just take Snowy Range Highway. It's open now because we haven't gotten any snow yet. It's still early in the season. So beautiful drive. Go up there, check out the trails, stuff like that, few lakes and everything. That's a must. Maybe stop in Centennial on the way up or the way back and have some lunch. I think that would be a good place. If you're just sticking in Laramie, Altitude Chop House and Brewery is a good place. I like Wyoming Ribbon Chop House. We went there after the Northern Iowa game and had dinner and watched some football. I recommend the New York Strip Rare and maybe an old fashioned. They make really good old fashions there if somebody's into that, or sodas or whatever you have. But I love the Ribbon Shop. Check out the tailgating. Wyoming does it right. It's not the biggest tailgate you're ever going to see, but they do it up right, and you hit the right ones closer to the stadium. You're going to meet some really nice people, and they may give you some grief for being a Utah fan, but I think you'll enjoy yourself as well. I'd also say get into the stadium a little earlier. They've had a lot of renovations, and there were some snafus with ticket scanners the first time around, and there was quite a bottleneck on the east side of the stadium. So I'd recommend maybe getting in 30 minutes early or something like that, just so you get your seat and get in okay so you don't miss the start of the game. Those are a few things, I think.
Is our guy Cowboy Ken still doing his thing?
Barrel Man is still around, yes.
All right.
Ken listens to my show every day as well. But, the Barrel Man will be there, Cowboy Ken.
Gotta love it. Keith, before I set you loose, Utah's a pretty big favorite. Last time I checked the line, I want to say 23. So I'll ask you, if there's an upset to happen or if this game is close down the stretch, what does that mean Wyoming has done?
Oh, boy. It means that they've kept Caden Anderson upright, that really good pass rush that Utah has. And I know, look, they're so talented, means that Wyoming has kept him upright. And it means that they've been able to control both lines of scrimmage, which is going to be easier said than done. That's what it'll mean. If they can control the lines of scrimmage and also contain Devin Dampier and not have him go off script, they can do all those things. They'll give themselves a shot to be in the game in the fourth quarter.
All right, Keith. Well, I appreciate the time. Enjoy the game on Saturday. Have a great call, and we'd love to get you back on again soon, okay?
Anytime. Thank you so much. This was so fun. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Keith Kelly, the play-by-play voice of the Wyoming Cowboys. We'll bring in Ryan from the Dish Pros in a moment. But, Porter, after hearing all of those recommendations, and the line that stood out to me is something that must have resonated with you, is once we get you to Laramie, you will not leave, which makes me fear that once you go to Laramie this weekend, I might get a text that you're Keith's new producer next week. But did that get you juiced for the road trip or what?
Oh yeah, excited for it. Gave us a steak recommendation even, and yeah, maybe I'll drop into the station there and chat with Keith.
All right, there you go. A rare New York strip and a old-fashioned, if you'd like, according to our guy Keith Kelly, brought to you today by our friends at IFA Country Stores. With IFA's Step 4 fall and winter lawn food, you'll get stronger roots now and an early green up next spring. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move. More at your local IFA or at IFA.coop. We're live today at the Dish Professionals. Come on by and say hello. It is a new place, so don't go to the old spot. It's a new spot. They have relocated. What you need to know mostly is the phone number is 801-424-DISH. You call that, you're good to go. My guy Ryan stops by once again. All right. Third week of college football, second week of pro football. So we're still at the beginning stages, but if folks have not been able to see the games that they want to see, and I know a few of them, they need to make the switch to Dish. Yeah,
call us up, and we've got the best overall solution out there with this offer with Dish is fantastic. It's something I've not ever seen in my 23 years in business where they've stacked so many things. And if you sign up, you get the 2-year promotion, 2-year price guarantee. The cool part is they're going to give you the top package Dish offers free for 3 months. That's worth a tremendous amount of money just by itself. And but then your price doesn't change. You get the NFL Red Zone, the multi-sports pack free for 6 months. So you're dialed in there, and we're going to throw in $100 cash back today on top of everything. So it's a neat opportunity.
Today only, though. So as far as the things that will either put money in your pocket, that's what people want to hear about, or save money long term, it's $100 in your pocket today. 3 months, no charge for the best package dish offers. And then you reference the 2-year price guarantee. I don't think people understand how big that is. If you're with a different platform like I was for about 12 years, I used to tell you, I would text you, I'm like, dude, I got an email from DirecTV. They're charging me another $15 with nothing added on.
And they're doing another price increase on the first of the month.
So this is 2 years. You don't have to worry about any of
You don't
that.
have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's huge.
And we have customers all the time, and I say minimum 30, but with these price increases now we're $44 a month cheaper. But we had a customer call in the other day, $100 a month cheaper on the TV side. Plus, we took their fiber internet, switched to a different provider, still used the same fiber. That was $30, so now they're $130 a month. And guys, that adds up quick.
Yeah, it does.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, you compound that over time. And the other thing, Ryan, is I know a lot of friends who have cut the cord. So they're doing YouTube TV and then all the streaming things they need. You add that up and suddenly you're paying more for Dish than you would have anyway. I mean, I understand the original plan for maybe a couple of people were, okay, I need this streaming service or that's not if you want to watch all the games you want, not if you're a sports fan. Like if you're a sports fan, you pay for all the streaming and YouTube TV. Suddenly you're paying more than you would pay for Dish anyway.
And unlike other products out there, Dish's DVR is the biggest, and it doesn't auto-delete anything. If you want to save it, it's not going to go away. And so you can keep, like you've got that Rose Bowl game.
2018, man.
That's a long time
Still
ago.
on there, yep.
See, that tells you how long you've had Dish. So
Yeah,
there you go.
it's true.
It's a great opportunity. Call us up and to get this, and also ask about the internet. I've been working my tail off. I just inked another deal where we're not only can we have providers that do fiber, but also Utopia areas too. And this is a really neat extra because this new company that we have, they're giving like 1 month free. And they're like $50 a month. So it's if you're spending $70-$80 a month for fiber or Utopia or some kind of product like that, it's not a big deal to just call and say, okay, lower the bill. And we've got a lot of tricks too where you can make it so all your internet connected devices just automatically reconnect to the new setup. And so it's not a headache. It's just money in your pocket. And today it's a little extra.
We haven't talked about this yet, and I do think it's important. At least it's been huge for me. Because if we're talking about all this stuff and you're thinking like, oh, I got to make this switch and I've got to set up this DVR and I've got to hang this TV, you guys install, you employ the LeBron James of installation who has problem solved at my place in more ways than I can even explain. Yeah. So Dave shows up. I'm like, dude, I want to hang this here. And we've got, and I mean, he's the best in the business. So if people call you, you can get next day installation.
Yeah, next day installation's free. We'll come out and set everything up for you. And if you need extra custom work done, you want TVs hung and different things moved around, we can obviously help you with that too. And Dave's been with me since the beginning, so 23 years, and Chuck's been here 14 years. So these guys really know their stuff. It's awesome.
Okay, call today. If you guys have been waiting, today's the day, because when I'm here, you get an extra $100 in your pocket. You get 3 months free, a 2-year price guarantee. You combine that with Internet Solutions, you're saving hundreds of dollars per month right out of the gates. If you've been waiting, today's the day. It's 801-424-DISH, 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Ryan, you're the man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, we'll catch a quick break. We got 1 hour in the books, 3 hours to go. Quinn McLean stops by for some more college football conversation. We're going to bring in Coach Bill Bush. He's become a good friend of the program and somebody who knows Coach Witt, Bronco Mendenhall, Kalani Sitake, and the tone and tenor of the local college football scene. Spencer Litton, our buddy from BYU TV, rolls by later on. Busy Tuesday show, live from the Dish Bros. Don't go anywhere. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Yeah, I knew I was going to regret this, and it only took me 2 bumps to regret it. Keith Kelly, play-by-play voice from the Wyoming Cowboys, joined us. It is a very big week for the producer of this program, Porter Larson, who essentially is a Cowboy at heart. He's very excited to go to Laramie, so I took the I took the restrictions off of his musical selections to allow him to play his favorite Cowboy music today. And the first one was fine, but that one that was a little leaning too heavy into the countryside of it. What'd you just hit us with?
You don't like some Cadillac Cowboy? That's Chris Ledoux, my man.
Oh, I should
as you know, right?
Obviously,
as you know,
the great Chris Ledoux.
But yeah, okay. It's very like '90s country. It's very twangy, but I see your point. We'll try.
Let's go. I thought you were like an old school guy. I thought we were going to get some Waylon Jennings, maybe some Johnny Cash. Can we go back in time a little bit?
It's a long show.
It is a long show. Yeah, that's. Thanks for rubbing that in. A solo host for 4 hours. But anyway, we're going to bring in Bill Bush today, longtime college football coach. Knows Coach Witt, Bronco, Kalani. We'll have Spencer Litton from BYU TV. Don't forget, tonight at 6 o'clock is the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show. It is the 3rd iteration. Riles will have that for you with Coach Witt. But let's talk some more college football. Friend of the show now. It's his second appearance. Senior data scientist from Sumer Sports, Quinn McLean, on a Tuesday. Quinn, happy Tuesday, sir. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back. Excited to talk another week of college football with you.
I appreciate the time. I just need an update on the aspiring single handicap golfer. Have you played since the last time we spoke? And if so, how did it go?
I have not played since the last time we spoke. I live out here in the state of Oregon. This time of the year is kind of the time when we start to retire from golf, please, a little bit.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right, Quinn, obviously we're the home of the Utes, and the conversation for not just Utah, but a lot of teams around the country is certainly steeped in how good the competition has been so far. I mean, UCLA might stink. You know, they got run by Vegas. Cal Poly is not a stiff challenge. But I'll say through 2 games, this quarterback and this offense has looked really dynamic. What has stood out most to you about Utah's offense as they're off to a 2-0 start?
Yeah, I think the big thing for them is they've set themselves up in really good position as it gets to 3rd and 4th down. They're number 1 in the country right now in terms of 3rd down success rate, 78%. 78% of situations when they're in 3rd and 4th down, they've been able to convert. And they've been able to do that by putting them in short yardage situations. Their average distance for 3rd down is only 3 yards, which is the kind of staple of this offense so far is get the small chunk gains on 1st and 2nd down, set yourself up for an easy conversion as it. The one thing that we have seen with that as a byproduct is there not a lot of explosive plays from this offense to stretch it downfield. And so I think one thing I'm curious about with Jason Beck so far is if he's hiding his card close to his vest as the season goes on with this lack of competition early on, so that when he gets in the Big 12 play, he can start to open up the playbook a little bit. But so far, a very efficient offense.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the lack of chunk plays. I just wonder if that's out of, when it comes to needing chunk plays, if you're down and Devin's got to throw it more. I mean, I don't think they've really been tested, and they haven't looked to be in a spot where they've been uncomfortable at all. Both these 2 games for the fan base here have been very anxiety-free. So let's dig into that a little bit more. Do you feel like the lack of chunk plays is more a result of them just being up comfortably and not needing to do it, or is that something Ute fans should legitimately watch out for?
I don't think it's something to legitimately watch out for, and it's kind of a byproduct of this offense a little bit. They run a little bit more laterally, sideline to sideline. Majority of 90% of their rushing right now has been zone rushes outside of either the left guard or the right guard, extending the barrier a little bit. So they like to stretch out the field a little bit. They don't pass over the middle a whole lot, and that's always been the calling card of the Devin Dampier. He doesn't pass over the middle towards the boundary a little bit to stretch it out, and it's worked so far for them. And I think that's something maybe as the season progresses, you have your linebacker safety cover more of the boundaries a little bit, and then you take your shots over the middle. So, I wonder if it's decoys that he's putting on film so that as he gets in the Big 12 play, people see like, oh, he's the guy that extends the boundaries. Now I can take my shots over the middle and get those explosive plays.
What has stood out most, whether it's your numbers or just what you've seen about Devin Dampier specifically, if we just hone in on quarterback play, which of course is going to be everything for every team on any level of football, as we all know. But when it comes to what Devin has done so far, what can you share as far as what the data says?
Yeah, so far very accurate, and that's not something we saw last year from him. Last year, 58% completion percentage. This year, so far, 78%. And so Jason Beck is containing him a little bit in that offense, again, to have him do a lot of the easy plays. And part of that is that he scrambled at a high rate, as I touched on last week, and he's rolling out at a high rate. So he's getting these defenders out of space a little bit and forcing him to make these easy plays. In the past, he was fumbling a lot, throwing a lot of interceptions, and I think that it's much more conservative offense with him that I think bodes well for him right now into this offense. I'm hoping that they kind of open it up in terms of his throwing ability, because he does have that live arm that we saw last year. It's something we just haven't seen this year.
So when it comes to being able to run the football, we know that Jason Beck wants to run the football, and we've seen a number of different players with carries, and the running back situation is Wayshawn Parker, Nakari Rogers. Nakari with 23 carries, Wayshawn has 17. Devin is actually second with 20. So let's move away from the throw game and hone in on the rushing attack. What stands out most to you so far?
The push off the line. They're 97 percentile in terms of their line yards, and that's being able to push the yards before contact. And that's, as we touched on last week, is they have those two-pillar left tackle and right tackle that are NFL caliber talent. The ability to kind of honing a run game to staple off to the end of it and getting 2 yards off the push before they even have to hit the hole or make a cut from that, I think is something that's speaking to the excellence of that offense and getting those chunk yards as they progress into it. So that I think has been a big explosive, and they haven't really needed to rely on the explosive plays a little bit. They have gotten more explosive plays from the running game than they have from the passing game, and a lot of that is just getting a good jump off the line.
When the competition improves, so Utah is in Laramie to take on Wyoming. In fact, let's just pause there for a moment. I don't know what sort of data you have on Wyoming or what sort of knowledge you have on the Cowboys. They're 2-0, beating 2 teams that certainly not very good. We chatted with their play-by-play voice. He kind of lauded their depth defensively. They've been stout, and Laramie's a complicated place to play. Utah, I think, is getting 22 in the hook. They might be a 23-point favorite thereabouts. What do you anticipate seeing with this matchup between Utah and Wyoming on Saturday?
Yeah, so currently Wyoming has a top 15 defense in the country, but you have to caveat that their first opponent was against Akron and northern Iowa. The other thing I think of them that I think could pose some problems for Utah is they've actually been above average in terms of moving the ball on the ground, and that's been a struggle so far for the Utah defense. In terms of EPA allowed per rush, Utah defense ranks 65th nationally in the amount of plays that they're giving up. And I think part of that caveat is they've been in situations in game where they've only had to see the running attack of it. But I think that's the one area that I look to hone in on for this week. And the other thing I think for Wyoming is that their tight end is an NFL caliber tight end. We have him as elite vertical threat ability, very quick at his position, on-field estimate speed of a 4.5 at a tight end position is very quick. And so that could be, as they establish that run game, he could pose a lot of issues for those safeties in the game.
Let me hone in on a couple of Big 12 teams, and Utah will see Texas Tech to open conference play. Fox Big Noon kickoff will be here. It's a 10 o'clock local kick time. Texas Tech, they put 1 million points on a couple of bad teams. Obviously, Cody Campbell is the bankrolling force behind this roster that has been very expensive. Recently, Cody said publicly that the school's raised $63 million since their collective was formed. That will be the first conference opponent for the Utes. What have you learned so far about Texas Tech, and what sort of matchup do you think we'd be in for?
I think it's going to be a very exciting passing game. And Texas Tech's offense right now is top 15 in the country in their EPA per pass. Baron Morton, the quarterback for Texas Tech, is number 1 in the Big 12 in terms of QBR. So his ability to move it downfield has been very effective. And I think it's a nice complement to the Utah defense, which is the top 10 defense in EPA per pass. The one highlight for the Utah defense on that pass rush is the emergence of John Henry Daly. He's a 30% pressure rate. So basically 30% of the snaps that he's in pass rush, he's putting pressure on that quarterback. Kind of came out of nowhere. I think he's been waiting his turn on the depth chart and having an excellent year so far. And so hopefully he has a breakout game against the Texas Tech offense, who's been very capable through the air. I think the one weekend for weakness for Texas Tech right now is they're pretty average in terms of their rushing ability. And I think that bodes well of Utah's defense has struggled to stop the run. They're going up against a very average unit as far as running the ball.
The most impressive resume so far in the Big 12 probably belongs to Iowa State. Utah will not see Iowa State this year. BYU does, though. We'll get to BYU in a moment. So through 3 games, they've got a P4 win and a Big 10 win against Iowa, a conference win against K-State. So I don't know that they're the best team in the Big 12, but when I kind of analyze conferences and break down things and do power polls and such, it is what have you done, not what I think you will do, because projections to me are silly. None of us really know how this is going to go down. But through 3 games, Quinn, what stands out most about Iowa State?
The quarterback Rocco Beck, without his tools, I think is something that I expected him to have an adjustment to. I think it's always difficult for an offense such as Iowa State when you lose 2 NFL caliber receivers, how you're going to bounce back for them. And so I think that's the one thing that's been impressed with Rocco Beck so far, is the ability to kind of move off that offense so far. The emergence of Benjamin Brahmer, the tight end there, as the leading pass catcher. We knew he was NFL caliber in terms of being a tight end, and he's done the leading target for Rocco Beck in this offense. They just do things very, lack of better words, in terms of boring and moving the ball down the field. They don't have a whole lot of explosive plays through the rushing attack. They're very capable in getting their explosive plays on the passing attack, but most of the time they just move the ball in early down situations, and they're able to capitalize in clutch situations on late down situations. So as their schedule progresses, I thought Iowa is a very capable defense and a good early test for them. It looks like they've got a schedule that sets up very well for them. Arkansas State this week, Arizona, Cincinnati, Colorado, BYU in the later half of October. We could talk about a team that's maybe running the table in the Big 12, just as far as how their schedule's set up for them.
BYU is on a bye, and I just think it's so entirely silly that there's a bye this early. I know other teams have also already had byes. I'm a scheduling snob. I think we need uniformity, and I've been on that for years. They'll see East Carolina next week, and so far they're starting a true freshman in Bear Bachmeier, and it's probably good because the first game they played was essentially against a high school team, and they ran Portland State off the field 69-0. Their defense is incredibly fast, physical, and stout under Jay Hill, and Kalani is a defensive disciple that came up under Witt. Stanford provided a bit of pushback on the defensive side, and BYU ran into some red zone issues and some penalties and some sloppy play here or there. I mean, look, this kid is so young. A lot to like about the potential, but through 2 games, Quinn, what do you feel like you can say about what you know about BYU?
Yeah, I think the thing that you do for a young quarterback is you establish a run, and they've had a very capable rushing offense so far. LJ Martin leads the conference in yards after contact, rushing yards, and he's seen heavy boxes about 33% of the time. So his production out of seeing a stacked box, given that people don't respect the young quarterback so far, has been very impressive. That top rushing attack, followed by the University of Utah. I think in terms of where I'd like to see a little bit more development out of Bear Bachmeier is they use a standard drop back for him 86% of the time, which means that he's a very athletic guy. They're not really moving him outside the pocket a lot to capitalize on that athleticism. And I think that's something, hopefully, as he gains more confidence down the stretch, that's something that I'd like to see a little bit more of them. The other thing of that is that their passing game has struggled a little bit. And with a very capable receiver, Chase Roberts, he's top 10 in the conference in terms of screen pass targeted. So there's very clearly a strategy of trying to get him open in space. I think they would, if you stretch out the quarterback, get him open in space, I think you have a little bit more capable passing attack. And so the 59% completion percentage right now, and he's last in the Big 12 in QBR, I think if they get him to focus more on who he is, a more athletic quarterback, I think those numbers kind of come in dovetail.
So if we pan back and look at this conference overall, the Big 12 conference overall, a lot of the non-con opportunities have gone by the wayside. It's hard to know how good Arizona State is. Mississippi State thought to be one of the worst teams in the SEC. Most people believed Arizona State, and they still might. I mean, I'm not, of course, through 2 or 3 weeks, I'm all about observation, not conclusion. But if I asked you, Quinn, to name the teams who you think are in the first tier of the Big 12, who are those teams and why?
Baylor is probably, I think I said that last week, they were in my top 3 of the preseason, and the big reason is the quarterback, Sawyer Robertson, has looked as good as advertised, and I think he continues to be one of the top QB prospects going into the 2026 class, and they just have a lot of talent on that roster. The only thing I highlighted last week was you look at the Shrine Bowl 1000. It's a predictive list of who the NFL scouts are looking at, Baylor's near the top of that list. And I don't think that's a surprising thing of how this defense is put together, and you've got the quarterback. Utah is probably up there for me. I think for last year, they had the passing defense and what we know for them, but you have the quarterback and a capable offense for them. I think they're going to continue to move up the leaderboards, and it's a very favorable schedule for them. I've liked what I've seen from Kansas so far. They are one of the top 2 passing offenses in all of football, and I know they lost in an absolute shootout in Missouri this last week, but I think Jalen Daniels has looked as good as advertised. The thing with Jalen Daniels is he gets on a very hot streak, and you can see that continue for about 4 or 5 games, and then he goes on a 3-game streak where you're wondering where that original quarterback was at. So I'd probably put them up there. I didn't have Arizona State very high in my list going to this. I just think that, and the data is kind of showing this, 46% of the targets on throwing is going to Jordan Tyson. They've got to find another option, another wide receiver too, over in Arizona State, and I think teams are picking up on that. So, yeah, Baylor, Utah, Kansas. I might throw TCU in that fold. Those are probably the top teams for me in the Big 12.
So if we pan back and move away from the Big 12, and again, it's so difficult to have these conversations because it's only a couple weeks. Some teams have played other good teams, and other teams have just dump trucked, bad teams here or there. I'll ask you the question this way. Which team through the early part of college football has surprised you the most, and which team has disappointed you the most?
Yeah, surprising, Oklahoma. I think they were a team that felt like very unraveled as the season went on last season. And they're a team that I think has a lot of capable talent on their team. And I think I had a lot of open questions with John Mateer going into the Oklahoma system, just given that, competition is something that we look at in terms of how we look at our metrics. And John Mateer, I think, looks as good as advertised and gives you a lot of shades of what we saw at Baker Mayfield down in Norman. So that's one that's been very surprising to me. And they are a top 5 team in terms of their ability to stop the pass as well. That's probably been the one biggest surprise to me in terms of an upward team. I think USF is another one I think was not necessarily a surprise, but one that I was excited to see go into the season. They were just very injured last year. And when you get that offense going with Byram, I think they're very capable, and I'm excited for that matchup this week against Miami.
Quinn, before I set you loose, just in the spirit of trying to find out how stiff the competition has been for some of our local teams, it was hard to get to know anything about UCLA based off of all the changeover, not just with the personnel, but the coaching staff. And, the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to Utah UCLA as the home of the Utes, we did everything we could to bring guests on to learn about the Bruins. And even by their own admission, their broadcast team were just as curious as the rest of us. So they go get beat by UNLV. And maybe I don't want to be disrespectful to UNLV, but before I set you loose, now that we have a 2-game sample size with UCLA, what's the takeaway as far as who they are, and could we learn anything as far as what Utah did to them at the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, I think right now they've struggled to pass the ball, and I think that's been a big surprise for them as they went out and get Nico Iamaleava in the offseason. I think Joey Aguilar in that system would have been very capable and probably fit that offense a little bit better, but they've struggled to pass the ball. Most of their explosive plays have come from running the ball, and quite frankly, that's come from Nico just scrambling the pocket. And on the other side of that, they just haven't stopped anybody on defense. The one bright spot for them, they are top 15 team in terms of their EPA per play on rushing attack, but against the pass, they are number 130 in FBS against stopping the pass, and so they've got to figure something out in terms of stopping that, and that's against opponents such as UNLV and Utah. No disrespect for them, but those are not passing offenses that you would expect to dominate this UCLA defense. So, they've got to figure some things out in terms of rushing the passer and defending the pass.
Quinn, where can people go find your work?
Yeah, I will be on Twitter at Quinn's Wisdom, and then at Sumer Sports. We have a lot of free data on NFL, and then some research articles that you can read up on some draft research I've done in the past.
All right, thanks, buddy, for the time. Have a good week, okay?
All right, thank you.
Quinn McLean, Sumer Sports, stops by today, courtesy of IFA Country Stores. With IFA's Step 4 fall and winter lawn food, you'll get stronger roots now and an early green up next spring. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move. More at your local IFA or at ifa.coop. Live today, Dish Professionals. My guy Ryan. What's up, dude? How are you?
What's up, mate?
Well, let's go ahead and turn your mic on. How about that? I've
There
only
we
been
go.
doing this 20 years. How you doing, man?
I saw that. I just didn't want to reach over the board.
No, all good. You probably should have. Well, look, it's great to be out here as always. One of my favorite places. Feel like we've been doing this forever. I'll just start with, if you're a sports fan, specifically a football fan, and you don't have Dish, you're doing it wrong. Tell us why.
This is a thing that Dish has really been working on, is making sure that you have a complete television solution. And Dish has done a fantastic job with the Hopper Plus technology, where they've integrated the Google Home, Google Play into the system, so you can have basically any app, and it's integrated in, and it's like a channel, so you can flip back and forth between traditional TV, full DVR, everything you're normally used to, and then be able to flip to ESPN Plus or to Netflix or YouTube and watch the Sunday Ticket, which Dish actually inked a deal where you can get basically almost half off if you are a Dish customer. So that's a neat little extra. They put all these deals together, and this offer right now has gotten so good because we've had this 2-year promotional credit offer and it's 2-year price guarantee, but Dish came over the top and said, hey, let's make it even better. They threw in the 3 months free of Dish's top package, which is huge. It's just, that is a ton of content and programming for free. And then on top of that, was thrown the NFL Red Zone free for 6 months, so you get taken care of there. This makes it so you can have access to everything. And like I said, if you want the Sunday Ticket, you can order that through the Dish system and be able to get pretty much half off. So it's a good deal there.
It's a good deal. You get every NFL game, and you reference the app in the guide situation with ESPN Plus. Utah Cal Poly was on ESPN Plus last week.
Yep.
And what I was able to do is sit there, because there were like 4 games I wanted to watch. You go to ABC, you go to CBS, you go to the main ESPN platform, and then ESPN Plus, for most people, is an app that you have to go get hit by hitting input or streaming it through your television on your phone. With Dish, it's on the guide.
Yeah.
So Utah Cal Poly, for our listeners last week that were confused how to find it, if you have Dish, you just go up to the next channel and it's right there because ESPN Plus is on the guide. It was amazing.
It's very cool.
And you can record it too, by the way. You can record ESPN Plus.
Yeah. That's really awesome. So it's a lot of cool stuff that Dish has been doing. And for everybody out there, listen, you got cable, DirecTV, you're overpaying. I guarantee $30-$40 a month. It's most likely $60-$80 a month cheaper than what you're currently paying, not counting that you're going to get 3 full months of Dish's top package for free. So you just can do the math really quick. It's $1,000+ plus we can also help with internet. And so if you feel like, I've got cable, if I cancel, I'll lose my good internet, I guarantee there's probably another internet provider that's a lot cheaper and just as fast or faster that you could also set yourself up with. And instead of calling around to find out, you call us. We have pretty much all of them, and we can say, hey, this is available for $50.
Yeah.
And let's lower your TV $100, and now you're $130 a month cheaper than what you currently were paying. And that's a real story. That's what a real customer experienced when they called us. So you got to call, find out, see how much money we can save you.
And also, you referenced the people that have cable or DirecTV. Once upon a time, maybe cutting the cord did save you money. But if you're a sports fan and you want all the games at your disposal, and you've decided to go the YouTube TV route with all the streaming options, it's more expensive than Dish now. If you have everything you need to watch every single game, between YouTube TV and all the streaming options, you're actually paying more money than the cable, the Dish network that you ditched a little while ago to try to save money. Yeah. It's weird how that works.
Weird how that works, and as it's coming around, this is the opportunity you're looking for. And today only, I'm going to write you a check for $100 for all new customers that sign up with Dish. So if you're listening to this and going, hey, okay, I'm interested, call us up, take advantage of the $100, take advantage of 3 months free, get the NFL Red Zone, and lower your bill.
You combine the internet solutions with the savings for Dish and the promotions today only, which are $100 cash back, 3 months free for their top programming, and then 2 years where your price doesn't improve or doesn't go up at all. You combine all those 3 things, and the internet solutions,
Yep.
hundreds of dollars per month,
big.
compounded over time. It's thousands of dollars in savings.
It really is, and it's that simple, and it's just so easy to fix it, to put that money back in your pocket. You just call 424-DISH.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. We hit you with a lot of info during these hits, so the best thing to do is call and ask questions. We got a lot of good people standing by ready to help you out. Next day install with the best installer in the market, too. So call us right now and just ask questions. The phone number is 801-424-DISH. 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Ryan, you're the man.
Thanks.
All right, we have Bill Bush, long time, not the guy from Access Hollywood. We did not get. I've asked Porter to effort that Bill Bush, but he hasn't been able to get him. Bill Bush, longtime college football coach, both here locally and some bigger markets across the country. We'll call that about 30 minutes from right now. Spencer Linton, our buddy from BYU TV, rolls by. Don't forget, tonight when we say goodnight at 6 o'clock, it will be the third iteration of the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show. But coming up next, an interview surfaced from an AP voter that indicates a problem with how this process goes down. We'll do a little Big 12, big picture football as well. It's a drive on a Tuesday afternoon, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. My goodness. My goodness. Okay. We've got to put our heads together here to come up with a different solution.
I think you just can't play country music.
No. If I'm going to give you the freedom to express yourself through musical selection, we just kind of have to come to a better understanding. So, just who we got here? What do we have for this bump?
This would be George Strait. Just the top-selling country artist of all time, 50+ number ones. This is one of his biggest ones, Oceanfront Property, a classic, I would say.
I thought you were anti-George Strait.
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
I think George Strait is just he's kind of like the T Swift of like 50-year-old men, right? Where he doesn't he toes the line. He's very marketable, but you've never heard like anything as far as drama or anything with George Strait. He just kind of knows how to sell records, and that's it with George, which is fine.
Is he still with us?
Yes, George Strait's alive.
Okay, shout out George Strait. Just something, if we could play something that doesn't make me feel that I'm at the state fair, Porter, is that okay?
Like I said, I think we just may have to not play country music on your show.
No,
some Chris Ledoux, some George Strait. When I play Willie, you always are belly aching. I'll just play Dave Matthews.
No, give me a little Willie. I can do a little Willie. But right now, just play some of the music from the guys that are either named Zach, Luke, or Brian. I feel like that's the group that's going on right now.
Yeah, that's where we have an issue, I think, because they suck.
Is that do they all suck? I feel like people love Zach Bryan these days.
They do.
What about Luke Combs?
He's better than Zach Bryan. But
what about Zach Brown Band?
I'm okay with the Zach Brown Band. They're fine. Luke Bryan, I'm out on that. See that it's the radio. It's like the country that, all due respect, will be played on our sister station over the way.
Okay.
That I just don't really listen to. It's fine though.
Didn't Beyonce win Country Artist of the Year last year or something?
One of those awards.
All right.
For the album, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, Porter is excited for Laramie, and so we've elected to go with some country tunes on the show today, and he's obviously taking a lot of liberty, so we'll see what happens moving forward. All right, we have a new client on the show. Excited for this. America First Credit Union. If you're excited for the Utah football season, you can support your team with the official Utah Athletics Visa debit card, which is free with an America First checking options. As the official credit union of Utah Athletics, America First can offer members the exclusive Visa debit card, along with all the perks that come with it. Special ticket offers. As an America First member, you can score exclusive tickets and prices to Utah sporting events on Ticketmaster.com. Early game day entry, you can beat the crowd and get into Rice-Eccles Stadium up to 2 hours prior to kickoff, which is huge, by the way, 30 minutes sooner than the general public. Simply show a valid ticket and your America First Visa debit card to the security officers at Gate L in the southeast corner. To see all of our great member deals and discounts, check out AmericaFirst.com and AmericaFirst.com/deals for more info. So excited to have them on board. All right, Porter, I haven't heard from you on this. I've talked a lot about it, and, I don't know that the Big 12 was awesome last year. It's just hard to tell whether or not this is a conference that has a bunch of good teams beating up on each other or a bunch of average teams beating up on each other. I've been impressed with Iowa State. I've been impressed with Utah. I've been impressed with BYU. I think you got to give Baylor some love after going to Dallas and beating SMU. And TCU just dump-trucked UNC. They've only played one game. But as you've watched the Big 12 conference this year, because the conversation we always have is, obviously, can Utah win the thing? Can BYU win the thing? And I think both those two teams, I think both Utah and BYU have shown that they should be considered Tier 1 schools. But how good do you think the Big 12 is this year compared to what we saw a year ago?
I think it's similar to last year in the fact that it's completely wide open. I don't know that we necessarily know exactly who those contenders are yet. I do think, Spence, one of the things we do know is that there's a little bit of a delineation between like the top half of the conference and the bottom half. There's not, a one or two teams outside of Utah and I think Texas Tech right now that are really distancing themselves. But you look really BYU, Kansas, Arizona State, Baylor, Iowa State, TCU, Texas Tech, and Utah, I don't see anyone outside of that list winning this conference. Now, I could see almost anyone on that list winning this conference with a little edge, I think, as of today with what I've seen, to, I think, Texas Tech and Utah. I think we're going to learn a lot in a couple of weeks here in Salt Lake City. I do think that so far, Spence, those are probably the best teams in the Big 12. You know, BYU will go as far as Bear Bachmeier will take them. The defense is legit, and the rest of their offense, I think, is really good, but Bears just look like a freshman. He looks like a freshman that has some potential, but you're just seeing that he's still learning that offense. He's still learning that system and learning the speed of college football. So, yeah, man, I don't know that we know much about the Big 12 still, just because of, we're not in conference play yet. But I do believe it's pretty similar to last year in the manner that 7, maybe 8 teams have a legitimate shot at winning this thing.
So as I always talk about, when we do like Big 12 Power Poll or our rankings, I can only go off of what I've seen, not go off what I project, because I just feel like, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times, there is not a sport. First of all, historically, there's not a sport harder to predict than college football. Now, currently, it's even more difficult than it ever has been as a result of the changeover, as a result of, the players being allowed to leave quite often willy-nilly. They're going to try to change that with a single transfer portal that will be in January, and if that is implemented, that will be good. But the sport has never been harder to predict. The sport has never been harder to read the tea leaves, and it was always hard to begin with. So I can't go off what I project, because I just feel like week in and week out we're shocked and surprised at so many results. But when you look at the FPI, when you look at friend of the program Bill Conley, when you look at ESPN's Football Power Index, which is steeped in really what you've done as opposed to projecting what they think you will be, it's interesting to consider. Utah is the number 1 team in the FPI at 14 in the country and number 1 in the Big 12. BYU is 2, 18 in the country, number 2 in the Big 12. And then TCU is at 3. It's Texas Tech 4, Iowa State 5. Iowa State has the best resume by far. Ultimately with a conference win, although K-State might suck, you losing to Army at home, K-State might be so far the most disappointing team in the Big 12, even though Arizona State laid an egg against a pretty bad SEC opponent. Obviously, Oklahoma State got undressed by Oregon. I love when the Oregon Athletic Department releases Dan Lanning's pregame speech to his team. I mean, that dude just gets you so fired up to play. He talked about the gasoline that Mike Gundy poured on the fire, said cowboy up, and then essentially said, let's go kick their ass. Oklahoma State, the last team in the conference, according to the FPI, after getting just brutally beaten by Oregon. So you have Iowa State at 5, Kansas 6, Baylor 7, Arizona State at 8. And if I had to put a line of delineation, I don't know that I'm entirely out on Arizona just yet. Kansas got by Mizzou, but I think they've looked pretty good early on. I think that's probably where I draw the line, Porter. I think I'd say Utah, BYU, TCU, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas, Baylor, and I'll just keep Arizona State in to give Kenny Dillingham the benefit of the doubt based off of what we saw a year ago. But if we're honest, Sam Leavitt has not been great. And there's a chance, Porter, and I'm not a homer, people know that, but there's a chance Devin Dampier is the best quarterback in this conference.
Right.
I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Sam Leavitt, Noah Fafita down in Arizona. Of course, there are other options. I thought Avery would look a lot better for K-State, but again, I can't really give them a lot of credit for barely beating North Dakota and then losing at home to Army. I mean, Avery Johnson's been pretty good. Without him, they probably would not have won a game all year. But Utah at number 1 in the FPI, and I think it's safe to say that so far there's at least a chance that there's not a better quarterback in the Big 12 than who Utah is under center right now.
Well, and you'll notice those top 8 teams that you just mentioned in the Big 12's FPI are the 8 teams that I just mentioned.
Yep.
When you ask me which teams have a chance to win. Now, UCF is 2-0. They're there as far as is their start. They're the only, outside of Houston, the only other team that is 2-0 outside of that list. I just don't see them really being a threat as we go down the slate. Part of that has to do with their schedule as well, and that's the same story with Texas Tech. Right now, Bill Connolly's ESPN FPI gives Utah and BYU twice the chance, right? And I'm talking about a percentage chance of making the college football playoff than they do Texas Tech. And that, I think, is just because of the schedule. It's because they go to Utah rather than vice versa. And that's how close FPI, Vegas, and I think a lot of us think the Big 12 is. I think Rocco Becht has probably been the best quarterback in the Big 12, but Devin Dampier is right there. And I think he probably has a cast around him that'll lift him higher than Iowa State does.
Cincinnati, I'm not fully out on them. I mean, they should have beaten Nebraska. They didn't.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know how good Nebraska is, but Nebraska went and laid it on, I think it was Akron a week ago. I mean, it was Akron. It was 68-0. So Cincinnati so far has one P4 game they played that was really close, and they probably should have won it down the stretch. And then they smoked Bowling Green. I mean, what does that mean? I don't know that I'm entirely out on them. It's just, I don't know, man. There's a little bit of a Pac-12 feel to this, where the final 4 or 5 years that Utah was in the Pac-12, we were kind of doing the same exercise, where I always felt like USC got the benefit of the doubt and never earned it. People just assumed they were going to be awesome, and occasionally they were, but more often than not, they didn't live up to expectations. But the consistency of Iowa State has to be given a lot of credit. Obviously, the bankroll of Texas Tech and the talent on that roster based off the millions of dollars that Cody Campbell has infused into the program has to put them in the conversation, as I referenced with TCU. But the FPI is interesting, and I think Bill's really smart. And the fact that he has Utah at 1 and BYU at 2 should make local college football fans very excited. Here's my concern, Porter, about Brigham Young. When you watch the Stanford game, and we're going to, I think we're going to get Bo McNally on this week. Bo went to Stanford. He's a local kid. He was the honorary Stanford captain during that game. And he was tweeting out during the game about how impressed he was with Stanford's defense. Offensively, Stanford was a sieve, and BYU's defense shut their water off. And L.J. Martin's awesome. The Sione Moa kid will run you over, and Bear has shown that he can get it done with his legs as well. They got an NFL wideout in Chase Roberts. Again, the defense is the defense. I said this when they named Bear the starter, and this is not a disrespectful statement on Bear Bachmeier, because I think he's a young kid with a ton of talent. I don't care who you are. Just as a true freshman, at some point, and BYU fans remember the Kansas game a year ago, and obviously Bear was not on the team. I just think at some point, like, BYU runs into this gauntlet. They start conference play with some cakewalks. The first 5-6 weeks for BYU, relatively easy, and I think if you're breaking in a freshman quarterback, you're fine with that. Their last non-contest is at East Carolina. Probably, again, will learn nothing. Colorado doesn't look near the team they were a year ago. That's BYU's first conference game. They get West Virginia at home. That should be fine. The Arizona trip might get a little dicey, but then they go Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati. So they have a 5-game stretch, and 4 of those teams, a 6-game stretch, and 5 of those teams are in the top 8 in the FPI. And I just think at some point a true freshman quarterback is going to get got. I just think you're going to run into something from a young man that's never played this level. Just like that Kansas game last year that really derailed what almost was an unbelievably special season for BYU, Porter. So that's my main concern with them. I just think a true freshman is going to get you at some point.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why, I don't usually put too much stock into where you put your buys, but when you got a freshman quarterback who needs reps, I don't really like that you're sitting this week, and I don't really like that you don't have a buy between West Virginia, Arizona, Utah, Iowa State, right? These are teams that are going to be a little bit of a gauntlet for you just on the depth. And, yeah, for BYU, that's a little bit of a tough position to be in. It just goes to show how important, Spence, these reps against East Carolina and then going into Colorado will be for Bear Bachmeier, because I do think that he has shown a little bit of the traits that you like to see if you're Aaron Roderick and Kalani Sitake, but it's just going to take time. That's the reality of having a true freshman. And if he's not looking like he's catching up with the speed of college football by October 18th against Utah, I think Morgan Scalley is going to be licking his chops. I know we're not going to always zero in on the Holy War, but when it's kind of dead mid-season for both BYU and Utah, it is kind of a good a good place marker, right, for us to look at where these teams are and what we can actually expect from them, because by then we'll have a couple legitimate opponents under their belt, and we'll have some more reps and more looks at what our new offense on Utah's side and a brand new quarterback on BYU side.
A little bit of breaking news. Jalen Carter will not miss any future games after spitting on Dak Prescott. The NFL has announced that they considered his ejection as a one-game suspension. Still, kids, do not spit on other people. It is a rude thing to do. All right, we'll catch a break. We'll bring in Coach Bill Bush coming up on the other side. Ryan from the Dish Pros is my guest. All right, Ryan, why is today the day to call?
Because today you're here and we get a little extra incentive for any customer that calls and gets set up with Dish. Dish gave us approval to do this, and so we're going to give everybody $100 cash back. So mail you a check for $100 you can use for golf clubs or whatever you want.
So you get an extra $100 if you call today, but there are also other promotions that, when stacked up, equate to several hundreds of dollars of savings every month.
Yeah, and equals thousands of dollars over the next year or two. Right now, Dish is the biggest DVR out there. 16 tuners, 2 terabytes of storage. It has the Google Play Store built into it, so you can add every single streaming app. And so they're like a channel. We talked about this earlier, that if you have ESPN Plus, it's going to be right there with all the other ESPNs, and it's easy to access that content and get the programming that you want. And the price is important, and we know that. And so Dish has got a great 2-year price guarantee, and with 2 years of credits, and they stacked this promotion up. So you get 3 months of Dish's top package free. You get the multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone, free for 6 months, plus some movie channels, Paramount Plus and Showtime. And it's an opportunity. If you call today, you get $100 cash back on top of all that. So it's an easy way to save money. If you're a cable DirecTV customer, it's a slam dunk. It's a couple $1,000 in your pocket by calling right now.
So if you're cable DirecTV, or if you are a cord cutter that once upon a time thought you were going to be in the right decision-making area because you have YouTube TV and a bunch of streaming apps. YouTube TV just raised their rates again. If you're in those categories at all, you make the switch to Dish, and we're a sports talk radio show. If you're a sports fan and you don't have Dish, I can promise you it's the wrong option, because I did that for years. So you should make the move even if you don't save money. But if you combine the fact that you're saving thousands of dollars per year, it's a no-brainer. I don't know why people are waiting.
Super easy. Call us up, and installation's free. We'll come out, and Dave or Chuck will be have your stuff installed in just a few hours, and your bill will be lower. And this doesn't even count what we can do for internet. And I've been busting my tail. We just inked another deal with another internet provider. This one's in the Utopia areas. So if you're in the Utopia area and you're spending more than $60 a month, you should call, because it's going to be cheaper that this other provider. Use the same Utopia, and you get 1 month free. It's a great offer. If you're a cable customer and you're like, well, if I cancel the TV, then my internet's going to go up. I probably have 2 or 3 different other internet options that are just as good and cheaper than what you're currently paying. So instead of calling around or even bothering with that, you just call us and say, okay, this is my address. What can you do for me? And let us work our magic and put a whole bunch of money back in your pocket.
Yeah, it's that simple. We hit you with a lot of info during kind of these hits that Ryan and I do. So the best thing to do, and if you've been waiting, today's the day, because you get an extra $100 in your pocket, is to pick up the phone and dial 801-424-DISH. And ask questions, 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Ryan, you are the man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, we got 2 hours in the books. We got 2 hours to go. One of my favorite guests, he's become a friend of the show, knows a ton about local and national college football. He coached with Kyle, coached with Bronco, knows Kalani. Bill Bush will join us coming up on the other side. We'll bring on our buddy Spencer Linton from BYU TV. We'll move into the 5 o'clock hour of the program on a Tuesday. Then don't forget, when we say goodnight at 6 o'clock, it's time for the third iteration of the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Is this the classic "Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys"? Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, 1978.
There you go.
See, I've got knowledge, Porter. I've got knowledge.
Only had to play one of the greatest of all time for you.
All right.
But I appreciate that. We're making progress. And
Okay.
just to be clear, our phone lines, few direct messages are not agreeing with you so far. If we're taking a poll.
Because you know I put so much stock into all that stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
totally. Yeah, keep texting in. Please do.
Please do.
All right, we're going to bring in Spencer Lynn, BYU TV. We'll do a little BYU today. But our next guest, he's become a good friend of the show, longtime college football coach here in the state and elsewhere, Coach Bill Busch on a Tuesday afternoon. Coach, how are you, sir?
Doing great. The song was incredible. It's a song that generally you really you don't want to be driving. You like to close your eyes and listen to it. It's that good. So appreciate you guys for playing that Waylon and Willie song. That kind of made my day.
Well, thank you. It was really my choice, so I will take all the credit for that. Bill, thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's all you.
So it is 100%. So ultimately, we are playing like hardcore country music this week because we have a trip coming up to Laramie, Wyoming. Bill, I would imagine you're familiar with Laramie and War Memorial Stadium. What sort of atmosphere do you think we're in for on Saturday?
I think it'll be a really good atmosphere. I've coached there, obviously, with the Utes, and that was fun. There was I can't remember the last time that Utah would have played there because we were in the Pac-12 so long ago, but I'm talking back in early 2000s. Kavika Casco pulled off a miracle in the end zone. There was a Hail Mary pass that was basically caught by Wyoming and was basically just stripped out of his hands in the end zone. And it was in either the 1st of December or the very end of November is when that game was, and it was cold. I'll tell you that. It was unbelievable. There's an early kickoff too. There was still frost on the turf as we played that game. But I remember that miracle by Kavika. So always very thankful for him.
So it has been since 2010, Coach, that Utah and Wyoming played at War Memorial Stadium. So it has been a while. I am old enough to remember not just the Mountain West Conference, but the WAC. Once upon a time, was there venom with these games? Did it feel like a legitimate regional rivalry?
It was definitely a regional rivalry. It was always one of those. It's you have certain games when you just tell your team that it doesn't matter. It's going to be physical. It's going to be tough. You're dealing with a lot. I'm sure they felt the exact same way with playing the Utes. And I know we felt the same way with playing Wyoming. Same thing is always like, hey, buckle up. It's going to be a really good game. Now, recently, whether they have that team that can match up with Utah, it doesn't appear that right now. But I'd be in the same mindset of don't be surprised if it is a heck of a contest because they will show up and they will be ready to play. And you'll have a very, very excited team and excited stadium. That's for sure.
I do want to get back to this game on Saturday in a moment, but before we do that, we have 2 games in the books now. I don't know how good UCLA is. They got by Vegas last week. Cal Poly, we know the deal with the FBS, FCF stuff. So, keep it in mind when it comes to what the opponent brings to the table. What stands out most to you about what Utah's been able to do through 2 games, Coach?
Well, what we talked about earlier before we ever kicked off, I said I was extremely excited about the combination of bringing in, the quarterback and his coordinator. And you see that across the country working very well. You see it at Oklahoma working very well down there with Arbuckle and Mateer. And the same thing's going on. When you bring in just talent or just coordinator, there's more puzzles to it. So that helps so much for your quarterback, and I think that's been a huge part of it from what I've seen so far. Like I said, I watched every snap of the UCLA game. I didn't see probably every snap of the last game, but like I said, that advantage is so big when you bring them in together and they've had success. And I just see a very at ease quarterback right now with what's going on in the system. And that is just because of the verbiage and just having that comfort zone of having his quarterback coach and his play caller who he's been with before. So I see that as a huge, huge positive and great move by Coach Whittingham.
Knowing what you know about Whit, it's interesting, and it's hard to be nitpicky when you've smoked two teams, 43-10 and 63-9. There were some mistakes, Coach, that showed up against Cal Poly that didn't really show up against UCLA. Devin Dampier himself after the game talked about mental lapses. There was some broken coverage in the secondary where if Cal Poly had a better quarterback, they would probably had a couple of more touchdowns. So, I kind of characterized it as maybe like a perfect game for Kyle, where there was no anxiety about the outcome. They were never not in complete control. But mistakes to dig into when you're watching film this week to prep for not just Wyoming, but the rest of the year. So I wanted to talk to you about, maybe what is perceived to be not a huge step in the right direction between week 1 and week 2. And the way I characterized it is I just find it difficult when it comes to the human nature element of young people to stay focused all week long. You go to the Rose Bowl and you undress UCLA on Fox. It was like the final marquee game of the college football weekend. It was a huge number. A lot of people watched. And, look, I know from a coaching perspective, and you'll speak to this as a former coach, you want to make sure your players are focused and working hard every single day. I just think it's kind of human nature if you're a young person to maybe read your articles a little bit and understand that a Cal Poly team is coming into Salt Lake that isn't going to push back on you very much. But knowing what you know about Kyle, what do you make of the way the game played out and the mistakes that both Devin and Coach Witt talked about that they need to clean up before Saturday?
Well, it's the old adage that you always you can coach your team really hard after a win. And sometimes after a loss, it's harder to coach them hard because you're trying to build them back up that you can do this. And so there's a little bit of a difference how you attack that. So while you want everything to be, you're never excited about the fact of like, okay, we busted the coverage. We didn't do this clean. At the same time, in the back of your head, you're almost somewhat excited about it because it gives you a chance to coach them really hard. It gives you a chance to really kind of somewhat get after them a little bit on errors that were made and things that had been covered. So it's kind of a win-win because if you roll into that, everything just goes smooth, no busted coverages, score 72-0. That's hard to coach off of. But so there's an advantage of sometimes having a few things go wrong. We're in an odd profession that all coaches are doing is we are searching. Our entire goal is perfection, and perfection with also an incredible effort, and it's unattainable. So every day, every practice, everything you do, it's never going to happen. But that's your goal, and so it's always a tough situation when you look at things. But I'm sure behind the scenes, I'm sure he probably had and I didn't talk to Kyle after this game. We always text all the time, but I'm sure there was probably some stern conversations, across the board with coordinators, with position coaches. Get your unit ready to play. Here's where some errors were, and it's a really a positive in an odd way that you can coach them really hard now and just say this will be unacceptable when we get ourselves into true Big 12 games down the road.
Really cool moment on Saturday at halftime. Coach Mack was honored. You were here when Alex Smith was inducted into the Ring of Honor as the first inductee. Of course, you recruited Alex. You know him very well. I wonder how you would articulate, Coach, what Ron McBride means to Utah football.
Well, he started, first of all, just for number one, he is, like I said, he is the face of the program, and he's the one who made BYU Utah relevant. He's the one that made that. When he came in, he created bringing that great rivalry to a head and bringing it back, and that's needed. If you don't have a rival, which some teams don't have, that's a tough situation. And Ron McBride, I had several people sent me the audio clip. They were filming it from the stadium. And so I had a chance to see that. So I had a chance to see live information. I keep in touch with Coach McBride, obviously, and having a chance to visit with him when I was out there last time. But he's the most incredible human being, the kindest person, always has time for you. And he just taught me so much on how to treat people. And he also taught me about the talent and how to do things. And he gave you some freedom. I remember going to him and saying, Coach, do you mind? I know that I have Hawaii as a recruiting area because Coach Whittingham had it, and I'd taken over Hawaii for him. And I said, Coach, do you mind if I take another flight to American Samoa? And he goes, well, we've never been there, but go ahead. and he allowed me to go there, and that's where I was able to locate Paul Soliai and Jonathan Fanene. And so I went over to recruit those guys to get them right off the island. Is because Coach McBride had enough faith in me to say, "Go ahead, figure it out. If you want to take an extra 6-hour flight over to American Samoa, go ahead and do it." And so just because of that, instead of being like, "No, we're not doing that," it could have been very, very close to it. Obviously, we brought in 2 major NFL players because of it, and more players, since that time. And we also had some on the team at that time, but it was fun to actually go over there directly, and that's all because of Ron McBride.
See, Bill, I knew you were a smart guy because you've got to get Hawaii as your recruiting footprint, right? I mean, that's the assignment you got to get. Did you have to fight anybody off to get Hawaii as the area that you were forced to go over to watch football?
No, actually, it kind of went back and forth. Coach Kafusi helped me there, and Kyle had Hawaii, and Hawaii does. Even though it doesn't sound like this, it does wear on you a little bit because that's a decent flight. When you leave at night and you land back in Salt Lake City and the sun's up, and you go directly to the office, it gets to be a little bit of a grind, but not that bad. So I'm not gonna get the violin out to feel sorry for him for going to Hawaii and going over to American Samoa. But I was very lucky to have that happen. Interesting Ron McBride story. I'm at New Mexico State, and Kyle brings me in for an interview, and Mac brings me in for an interview for the job, and goes well. And Mac says, "I'll drive you to the airport." So Mac's driving me to the airport, and he's driving to the airport. He offers me the job, and I said, "I'll take it." He goes, "I didn't even tell you what I was going to pay you." I said, "I'm not worried about it, Coach." I said, "I'm sure you'll do the best you can, and that's all I care about." And so he drives me to the airport. I take the job. Of course, Mac, this is before 9/11. So Mac walks me in, and everyone knows him. He walks into the airport. Everyone's, waving at Mac, and Mac, come over here. And he walks me right up to the counter. He gets me bumped up to first class. He walks me right to the gate. Gets me on the plane. I'm driving back, and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's unbelievable." And I land back in Las Cruces, and I get a phone call immediately, and it's from Les Miles and Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. And Miles is the head coach, and Gundy is the associate head coach. And they said, "Bill, we'd like to talk to you about the job at Oklahoma State to be the DB coach here at Oklahoma State." And it was it was double in pay. And so Coach McBride got wind of this happening, and he called me up and he said, "Bill," he said, "if you want to go interview for that job, you can go interview for that job, and you still have a job here if it doesn't work out or whatever happens." And I just said, "Coach, I'll be in Salt Lake City in a week." I didn't even take the Oklahoma State job just because of the guy, because of how Coach McBride, because most people would tell you if you go on that job interview, you don't have a job here. And Mac did just the opposite. And I said, "I'll see you in Salt Lake City." And I was there 4 days later, and away we went. So that's the kind of person you're dealing with Ron McBride.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, if you don't like Mac, it's probably a you problem. It's not just Utah football.
Problem.
Yeah, it's not just Utah football. It's what he's meant to our community. And somebody who's not from here, making his home here and making a huge difference, a little bit like Frank Layden, who we just lost a few weeks back, and Mac and Frank were dear friends. I wonder, Bill, if you could kind of take us inside the transition from Mac to Urban to Witt, because the way I kind of always articulated is Ron bought the land and developed it, and Urban built the mansion, and Kyle finished the estate, right? But without the land and without the initial investment, I don't know that Urban takes this job. And without what Urban did during that 2-year just wonderkin's rise, I don't know if the Pac-12 is a thing. And then Kyle has been Kyle for 2 decades. Tell us about the transition from one to the next to the other. You had a front row seat.
Isn't it not incredible, that run? I want you to just go through a lot of programs and talk about their last 3 head coaches. And Utah's, I don't know if they're one of one, but there's probably a 2 or 3% that can say that. Yeah. You can just say, look at our last 3 head coaches and look at the success and what they did. And then obviously Mac and Kyle's is different because it was over time at Utah. And Urban, what he did was also phenomenal, what he came in with. I remember having a conversation with Coach Meyer, because he retained two people. He retained Coach Whittingham and myself. And we were in a conversation pretty early on, within the first couple of days at Utah. And he said, "How are we?" And I said, "We're the best team, and we're the best team in the conference in the Mountain West." He's like, Urban would do that. Whoa! And I'm like, "No, Coach, we are. We're loaded. We're a really good team." Obviously, and that's the time when Alex was just going to be going into his second year, and we knew how good he was going to be, and we had players at all positions, and so it was fortunate. So Urban did two things. He walked into a very, very talented team, and then but he also set high standards of everyone accountability, everything he did. It was I always use the term with Urban. It was 4th and 1 every day. And it was awesome. 4th and 1 every day was awesome, because what's better than to work for somebody that wants their stuff done right all the time? If you ever work for somebody in that world, it's incredible. And so he came in from the outside and made it work at Utah for those couple of years, and his high standards and all the different things that I still use to this day in coaching and in just everyday life with Urban helping. Same way with Mac, and then with Kyle. Obviously, the test of time is the one that stands out the most, because just look at this profession. Where's he ranked right now as far as about second or third, probably in longest tenure? Probably
second.
Second right now. So that doesn't happen in this profession. Things don't go. It's not for long, and for him to be able to do that, and then also to be able to have these conversations of how well he held up, and then obviously he had such a love for the state of Utah, and he obviously was an assistant coach prior to have all these years. It was just remarkable. And I remember the phone ringing. I'm in Hawaii recruiting at the time, and I just remember having the conversation with Kyle because if you guys both remember, he had job offers from a couple places, BYU and Utah, and that was at the same time. And I just remember him, talking about what his thoughts were on what he might end up doing and different things, and obviously thankful for everyone that he ended up with the Utah job.
It's interesting insight. I always say that the two biggest, seminal moments that allowed Utah football to rise up and pretty much dominate a generation over BYU were, the Pac-12 invite, and then Kyle saying no to his alma mater and yes to Utah. How hard do you think that decision was for him? I've heard from a lot of people. I've asked him over the years, but I've heard from a lot of people that was a tough one for Kyle, to say no to his alma mater and say yes to Utah.
Oh, there's no doubt. That's his alma mater. At the time there was, BYU was always viewed as we all know, as an incredible program, and so it was very difficult for him. And he keeps things pretty close to the vest. I'm sure he had to spend a lot of time with his family and obviously his awesome wife to figure that out. But to stay there was a lot, because I would say the easy choice in my mind was to go to BYU. That was the easier choice, to go to BYU at that time. And Kyle took a little bit of the harder choice, and that went extremely, extremely well for him. So, like I said, I'm just so lucky to have a chance to spend time with him and be on a staff with him. And it's just been a great situation. And like I said, and I can't imagine how, like I said, you never know what would happen. Who knows what happens if Kyle goes to BYU. Obviously the world is a lot different. We'll never know that, but it went really well for him, and I couldn't be more excited for him.
Well, and interestingly enough, Bill, I didn't plan on asking you this today, but now that we're kind of in the space of the conversation, Kyle saying no allowed another friend of yours to get that BYU job in Bronco Mendenhall. And look, I'm not asking you to sell out any of your friends, and nor would I ask you to share information that you want to keep close to the chest here. I'll just say, from my vantage point and the vantage point of others, those two aren't breaking bread together. Those two didn't seem to really necessarily, it's pretty obvious that Kalani and Kyle have, and obviously Kalani was up here coaching for Kyle, and maybe it's just the nature of one coaching for BYU, the other coaching for Utah. I guess the adjective I'll use is icy, maybe some friction there. Is that fair to say?
You know what? And being 100% honest, I don't know that. I don't know if that's accurate. I think it's just probably the nature of one person's coaching at BYU and the other one's at Utah. I know there was always great respect, and I think there's just always a natural kind of like you said, a tendency to just like that rivalry. Being a part of it was one of the most remarkable rivalries. I've had a chance to talk now from being in the SEC and Big Ten and all these places I've been in, and major rivalry games. Growing up with Nebraska, Oklahoma, and coaching in that game, coaching in Nebraska, Colorado, and coaching in LSU, Florida games, and I've just been part of these games like that. And I told everybody, I said, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if there's one bigger than BYU Utah. I said, there's not one I've ever felt more than I've ever just felt anything more than that. I've been lucky to be in the Ohio State Michigan game before, and I just never felt a game anything like it was with BYU and Utah. And I'm so thankful that it's back. I'm so thankful that it's back and in the same conference too. I think that makes it even better because you need that natural rivalry. So I think that's awesome. But as far as the exact, I know this. I have talked to Kyle, 1,000 times, and I've talked to Bronco 500 times. Never one time did one ever express to me the disdain for the other for something at all. And then that was never said, but there probably was a natural friction just because that game meant so much.
Yeah, fair. Well said. Impressions on Brigham Young through 2 games, Bill? I mean, they've got this freshman quarterback who's built like a linebacker. He wears 47 under center. It's interesting, Bill, and we had Kalani on 2 weeks ago. I asked him this. If you read any national publication that is discussing Brigham Young right now, it's starting to sound a lot like they would describe Utah with, the defensive culture. And I asked Kalani, as he's built up this thing, he's been there 10 years now, how much of this do you feel like is yours? How much of this do you feel like is Lavelle's? How much do you feel like it's Witt's? And he was very humble and honest, because that's who he is, that he has built up BYU football predicated on the lessons he learned from the man who he played for, Lavelle Edwards, and the man who he coached for, and Kyle Whittingham. So that defense is nasty. Obviously, Jay's down there running the show. I don't know if they've been tested, much like I don't know if Utah's been tested, but Portland State, Stanford, they're clean after 2 games. They've only allowed 3 points. What do you think?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing to stand out is it's really hard to allow just 3 points, no matter who you play. It's really hard to be able to do that. That part is difficult. They have, and I'm sure they would say the same thing, and I'm not speaking for them because I do talk with members of that staff also, just because there's friends of mine on that staff. Obviously, Jay Hill was my graduate assistant at Utah, and Chad's down there, and TJ, the offensive line coach. We were together at Utah State and at Wisconsin, so those are good friends of mine. I would feel they would all say the same thing, that they have not been tested. That's the one thing they said, they have not been tested. I would say that Utah has been tested more. Even though they handled UCLA easily, UCLA is more talented than what BYU has seen to this point. So there are some advantages of it. So you get a chance to work out a lot of kinks, a lot of mistakes, the functionality of your team, which means how do we stretch, how do we warm up, how do we substitute, all these little mechanical things you get to do with a lot of reps without being highly stressed, because the opponent across, if you make one mistake, you're still probably going to come out on top. And so now things will start to change, obviously. But they have not been challenged yet, but that doesn't mean either it's like, well, they haven't been challenged. That means they're not quite very good. I wouldn't say that either, but it's going to be fun to see how they develop and see how these games come down, that's for sure.
All right, last thing, Bill, I'll set you loose on this. Look, A&M's good. Marcel Reed is an excellent quarterback. That's a tough place to play. Your old buddy Bronco Mendenhall got a win week 1 against UTEP, and then, they were able to counterpunch a couple of times against A&M, but they were never fully in the game. They'll see Air Force coming up on Saturday, always a tough task. But early returns, Bronco Mendenhall, Utah State, Bill, sound like what?
Yeah, I was really impressed with tracking that game and seeing some of it, obviously, because they did punch back. It ended up being a 40-something, 22, am I right on the score?
Yep.
With that. So they were able to punch back, and it wasn't a 56 to nothing game. So they're able. You can put 22 points on A&M. That was a heavily invested team, and so I would say Bronco would never be happy. I think he's going to look at how hard did we compete, and how much did we handle? Where were the pre-snap errors and all those little things that happened? And just so everyone knows, people have asked me, numerous times, like that, incredible places to play. And I've been to A&M numerous times. I've been there with Utah State. I've been there with Nebraska. I was there with LSU. And the sheer pageantry of that place, of 100-some thousand people, it's insane. It's one of the hardest places. If it's not it'd be one of the ones. It'd be one of 2 or 3 to 4 places to play. And so when you show up there, no matter how big you've played in, the biggest games you've played in, it's a wow. When they march the cadets in, it's a wow. The whole stadium, when you're up in the press box, the whole stadium moves when they sway back and forth. So it's a wow. And they hung in there. And so I imagine Bronco deep down inside, without being too verbal about it, probably pretty proud. And then at the same time, now he walks into an Air Force team, which is a completely different offense. And that's a headache for you. And so his headache, turned into, okay, I wish we were playing someone a little bit more, normal of an offense, because you get into option football, triple option, 11-on-11 football, plus 1 quarterback runs, your hands get full really fast defensively. And so, but I'm very, very pleased with where they're at right now.
Bill, thank you for the time, sir. Enjoy the weekend ahead. Enjoy the games. We'll get you back on soon.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I look forward to being back on. And like I said, there's nothing I love more than following everyone back in that state, and go Utes.
There you go. Bill Bush, former defensive back coach for the Utes, coached for Mack. He coached for Urban. He coached for Witt. Utah State under Gary Anderson, won a national championship in 2019 with LSU, so appreciate his time today. All right, Ryan from the Dish Bros, here's the deal, 801-424-DISH. If you are a sports fan and you don't have Dish, you're doing it wrong. My guess is you probably have already run into issues trying to find games. Mm-hmm. They're all on Dish, and today's the day to call because we have stacked promotions, right?
We do. We have the best promotions ever, and a little extra because you're here, and it's a great opportunity. And we talked about how the Utah game was on the ESPN Plus, and Dish has it set up so if you add ESPN Plus, you have it. It'll become a channel in the DVR or in the guide, and you can record it and use it. This is how TV should be. It should be all integrated because you want to have the DVR. You want to be able to record things. You want your system to auto-record your games and auto-record the locals. So, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football is nothing neater than starting it, 30, 40 minutes later and just skipping through all the commercials.
It actually happened to me last week. So if you forget to tag a game on other platforms, you're screwed. It's gone. It's in the ethos. Yep. On Dish, the ability that they have to auto-record the local channels will give you the biggest and best games, even if you forget about it. They're just still on your DVR. It's a cool feature.
It's super cool, especially if you're a football fan.
Yeah.
It really works out well. Here's the thing. If you're cable or DirecTV, if you've got a big streaming bill, you're using even YouTube TV, you can save money by calling and setting up with us today. We've got this fantastic 2-year promotion, 2-year price guarantee, and we're going to throw in Dish's top package. This is like 300 channels free for the next 3 months. We'll also throw in Showtime and Paramount Plus free for 4 months, and we're going to throw in the multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone free for 6 months. And today only, $100 cash back.
In your pocket, since we're doing the remote here, they hook you up with another $100. Finally, Ryan, we know you as the Dish professionals, but you have a tremendous amount of solutions for people who think they're paying too much for internet. And if you think you're paying too much for internet, you are.
Yeah, and this is exciting because I just inked another deal with another internet provider where we can offer their products, and this is in the Utopia areas. So listen, they're crushing cable and crushing other Utopia providers. You can use a fantastic fiber solution and maybe even the same fiber and just pay a different provider and spend $30 less a month, and that adds up quickly. Call us up and just take advantage of our tools. We'll just plug in your address. We'll say, hey, you have this and this available, and we can get you this price. And some of them are offering like the first month free and other incentives like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff there, and it's not hard to switch your internet. We got little tricks too, so all your internet-connected devices will just work on the new internet. You're just going to pay less money, and that's the goal. Let's put some money back in your pocket, and I'll write you a check on top of it.
Bottom line, last thing, we're not sending you a bunch of gear and saying good luck. We'll install it the next day with the best installers in the state.
Yeah, our team will come out. We'll install it. It includes free installation, so you don't have to worry about anything. We'll come out, program the remotes, and if you need a little extra home theater help, TVs installed, we can do that also. And we'll get you taken care of the right way.
Bottom line, call right now if you've been waiting. Today's the day. An extra $100 cash in your pocket. 801-424-DISH, 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Call right now. Ryan, you're the man.
Thanks, bud.
All right, coming up on the other side, we'll bring in our buddy Spencer Linton from BYU TV. We'll get back to the college football, pro football storylines of the day during the 5 o'clock hour of the show. And then when we say goodnight at 6, it's time for the third installment of this year's Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show. Riles and Coach Witt will join you at 6, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. Diego Luna is not starting tonight as the U.S. men's national team is taking on Japan. 9 months away from the World Cup, our next guest joins us to break down some international soccer on a Tuesday afternoon. Spencer Litton from BYU TV. All right, buddy, what are you looking for as the U.S. men's national team is playing Japan tonight?
Hopefully a team that doesn't lose to the Republic of South Korea 2-0. How about that for starters, Spence? Is that fair?
Okay, I'm just glad you had some knowledge. I have no frame of reference for whether or not you even like soccer.
I love soccer. I served my mission in, speaking of South Korea, in Busan, South Korea, and while I was there, the World Cup was in Korea and Japan.
Ooh.
So I got to experience the World Cup firsthand in those Asian countries, and it changed my perspective on how incredible and how important soccer is to every country outside of the United States on our fabulous globe. And it was magical. I mean, the Super Bowl is a big deal. The World Cup is on another level.
That must have been fascinating. I served my mission in Provo, Utah for 8 days in 1997, and that's the end of my story. So.
Oh, Spence, you make me laugh, dude. Oh, good stuff, man. But yeah, the World Cup changed my mind on soccer forever.
Yeah, no, that's great. Nobody wants to talk soccer on a football Tuesday, so we'll move on rapidly. First question, it's interesting. And look, it's not Utah's fault that UCLA might stink. It's not BYU's fault that Stanford might stink. You schedule these games years ago, then you hope that things work out. I don't know that either of these two teams have been tested, but let's start with your BYU Cougars. Through 2 games, what do you feel like you know?
Well, I feel like BYU's defense is really, really disciplined and physical and a byproduct of being in Jay Hill's system for now 3 years. I will be shocked if he is still available and ready to come back without having fielded some significant coaching offers elsewhere, because we've talked about it on this program before. Spence, Jay is special, and he is just making such a huge difference. And I mean, you talk to any defender on BYU's team right now, and they'll tell you he's the smartest football mind that they've ever come across, and just how detail oriented and how surgical he is. And he demands a lot from his guys, and he's got the crew in place that is ready and willing to answer his high demands. And so I feel like I do believe that even though it's Portland State and Stanford, gosh, and we're talking about 3 points given up in 2 games, and 7 rushing, I'm trying to remember the total number of rushing yards that were given up, but I mean 7 yards per game or something like that. It's crazy. It's crazy. But that's a tribute to him and the system that he's worked so hard to instill at BYU. As far as the offense goes, yeah, there were some red zone struggles and some frustrating penalties and some hiccups by BYU and a few freshman mistakes, which are understandable, but a lot of self-inflicted stuff against a not great Stanford team. And so, I think most fans left the stadium on Saturday night feeling like, gosh, it should have been 40-something to 3, not 27-3, but BYU still covered a 20.5-point spread because their defense only gave up 3. So it's going to be hard for I feel, BYU to really know what they have offensively until they get into some road environments at East Carolina and Colorado and certainly Arizona, who looks to be a little bit better this year. But it might take until the Utah game in Game 7 before we really know how much Bear Bachmeier on the offense and Aaron Roderick and that part of BYU's football game has improved. Like what are they? Well, the first legitimate test, it feels like real test, might not come until week 6 or even week 7 against Utah. So right now I'm happy to say that I feel like I believe and know that the defense is legit.
I've always been one, and I maintain this to be true, that thinks one of the glaring issues in college football are some of these early season tilts between two teams that are not evenly matched. I mean, we don't have that in the NFL. Yeah, there's some down NFL teams here or there, and sometimes we see blowouts. I don't love the dynamic of an early season slate that doesn't feature teams that give you an accurate litmus test on who the opponents are. I mean, neither Utah or BYU will be tested in the non-con. That's my take. I think Utah runs away from Wyoming, and I think BYU will handle East Carolina. So I agree that until you get into conference play, and, you know, the dynamic, though, I think this year for BYU is breaking in a young quarterback. Maybe you like that you ease into the season with not just non-con, but I think Colorado's down this year, and West Virginia isn't great. So a couple of early Big 12 teams that I think you guys should handle as well. But with the dynamic of having to see what sort of hand you've been dealt with Bear, is this the year where you kind of like a soft landing spot?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to be able to give him a runway and a ramp to build some confidence, which is, I mean, it's tough, especially for a young guy. I mean, you use Isaac Wilson last year with Utah, he's a talented guy, and he was brought up in a reputable prep program and did the Elite 11. Like, Isaac's talented, but I feel like he didn't have the ramp up that Bear is going to be granted, and maybe things are a little bit different for Isaac if he had a schedule that Bear Bachmeier is working with at BYU. It just really, really typically you have like a really tough challenge at some point in the first 5 or 6 weeks, but maybe this is, to your point, the greatest thing that ever happened to BYU's offense and their new quarterback, allowing him some grace and some understandable patience, but against teams that aren't going to hurt BYU as much as others would if he does have a bad mistake and a red zone in your own red zone or a fumble on your part of the field and it turns into a short field for your opponent, or he throws one of those devastating pick sixes early in a game against a really good team. I am hopeful that there is enough of a challenge in the first 3 conference games and maybe going on the road to the East Coast that he can work through it. And when the time comes to host Utah on October 18th, that he's ready for, as ready as you can be, a Utah defense that looks dynamite. And, I mean, it feels like Utah's back, Spence. I know it's early, but it just, the first 2 games, to me, it feels like, okay, they had the hiccup last year. They're back. They look really good and super motivated. But maybe there's enough in the first 6 games that Bear Bachmeier can be acclimated enough to know, okay, this is big-time college football, and this is a top 20 opponent. And we'll see what happens. But to say the least, I'm super excited for where both those teams will be on October 18th.
I'm sorry, did I just hear Spencer Linton use the term red zone out loud?
Indeed you did. I'm not a guy that's big on the blue zone, brother.
Okay.
It's a red zone, and it's been that way forever in football.
Oh, thank goodness. See, this is why I can have you on the show. I may have to text Shep after we're done that you actually said red zone out loud. I just wanted to make sure that I heard that correctly. Since you brought it up, I'll take it because look, one of the things I've always liked and respected about you is we all know who you work for, and so do you, and we all want to keep our jobs, and we all have families to support. But I know you watch Utah. I know you respect Utah. So same question, through 2 games, really what stands out most as far as what you've seen from the Utes?
Oh, well, I just mentioned the defense and how physical they are. Like, both BYU and Utah's defenses look very well-disciplined, well-schemed, well-coached, and I'm not going to say the term flying around, but I will say that they are going to play a very physical brand of football, and it's better when that is the case. I'm so happy that both teams seem to be in a place where they're playing that level of football on defense. It just makes our jobs that much more interesting. And I do feel confident saying that I believe Devin Dampier is a problem for opponents. I think he has a huge potential and a really high ceiling. I know he is quote-unquote undersized compared to a lot of other college quarterbacks, but gosh, he's fast and confident and dynamic, and I think he has some real ability to help a Utah offense that is searching for some consistency. And one of my good friends and a guy I trust a lot and have a ton of respect for, Jason Beck, is coaching him. I don't think people understand how much of a difference Jason can make to have his guy and the continuity of having worked with Devin at New Mexico and then bringing him into Utah. Hopefully they're starting to pay some credence to that, because I feel like Jason, as the offensive coordinator and having his quarterback again, like this is good. I'm with you. I think they're going to roll Wyoming, and I can't wait to watch what Utah does against Texas Tech. Like that, I'm fascinated by that matchup in Big 12 play, and can't wait to watch that game and see how it all unfolds. But you put me on record. I think Devin Dampier is legit. And is going to be really exciting for Utah and an offense and a fan base that's waited for an offense, to be explosive again, probably for the first time since Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss, at least to that capacity. Or, I'm not going to say Cam Rising had that offense going too, but it did take me back to that 2019 squad a little bit, where I was like, man, this could be really fun for Utah football and their fans if Devin can continue to develop this way.
So when you dump truck two teams to the tune of 96-3, it's hard to find anything to really get nitpicky about. But Parker's put it on the deck a couple times, right? And preseason, Parker Kingston was thought to be one of the better punt/kick returners in the country based off of what he did a year ago. I think it was Kelly Papinga referenced that now Tiger has that job, right? Tiger Bachmeier has the job. They're going to take it away from Parker.
Yeah, and that's tough. Because you're right, there were multiple publications that had Parker slated as a preseason All-American. And when you return two big-time punts in big games against Kansas State and then against Colorado in the Alamo Bowl, like these aren't just punt returns of little consequence. I mean, those were both in big-time games. And were a credit to Parker and his athleticism and the setup by Kelly Papinga and the special teams, which have been really good for BYU over the past year and a half. It's now kind of feels like it's become a somewhat of a mental game. It's like, oh man, like, is Parker okay? Is he where he needs to be? And I hope that while it's going to be hard for him to take a back seat to Tiger, that it doesn't ultimately and entirely shake his confidence, because Parker's a really good player. And I feel like we have certainly not heard the last of him in the receiving game, in the special teams game. He'll have his opportunities again. He's thrown more touchdown passes than Bear Bachmeier at this point on trick plays. And it was so good in that capacity when he was a high school quarterback. So BYU knows that he's a weapon. I just hope that he's not deflated so much that he can't find the confidence that he's had for so long. That's always tricky. But I do believe that the coaches and the staff at BYU, they felt clearly like they needed to make a move. And I believe that there's enough trust between the coaches and Parker that it won't entirely derail him. At least that's my hope, because he's got a lot to offer this BYU football team moving forward, even if it's not for the time being in the immediate future as the punt returner.
So Kalani, like Kyle, they do not discuss injuries unless they are season-ending. Logan Fano and Jaron Kump were held out of Cal Poly. I think that was more precautionary, and honestly, hold them out against Wyoming if they're compromised at all. But I am seeing, I have your Twitter pulled up, that JoJo Phillips, who's a talent and potentially a deep threat for Bear, he had surgery, it looks like. Obviously he's not back anytime soon. Do you have any idea what this entails?
Yeah, and I mean, using context, because I was on the sideline when it happened. I watched him walk in front of me. I watched him come out with the sling, the way he was hanging his arm. And, like, I've been around the game long enough and around those type of injuries enough to feel pretty confident that I'd be shocked if it's not a collarbone. And then the pictures that he posted, even the bandage is up around that area on his left shoulder. And Kalani used the phrase, he'll be out for some time. BYU says that they will declare if it's season ending, and they have not said that. So I am inclined to believe it is not a season-ending injury, but if it is a collarbone and he had surgery on it, it doesn't take much to type into our old friend Google and AI and Grok and all the things that, or whatever AI service you want to use, hey, what's the typical return time or recovery time for a broken collarbone with surgery? And it's anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. And I think BYU fans and the training staff are hopeful that it won't be as long as 10 weeks. but it could be. I mean, I think it would be irresponsible for me to say that it's not going to be at least 8 based on everything around it. And we'll see how quickly JoJo can heal. But yeah, that's a blow. If it's an 8-week thing, then talking about a senior kid who had one of the best training camps of any BYU football player, and they were really expecting him to emerge as the number 2 receiver behind Chase Roberts and be able to stretch the field. And gosh, you should hear his defensive back teammates talk about how impressed they were. Gosh, it just like they felt like he had taken the biggest step forward of any of BYU's receivers over the offseason. So hopefully he can get like a medical and come back to BYU if he has to sit out that long. But if it is 8 weeks, I mean, we're talking with a couple of bye weeks, maybe he's back for mid-November. But that hurts BYU's receiving core for sure in the depth there.
Last thing, Spencer, I'll set you loose on this. Big 12, who's good? I mean, ultimately, when you look at the FPI, Utah's 1, BYU's 2. Based off of what we learned a year ago, I feel like we should probably include 7 or 8 teams in a Tier 1. But who's good in the Big 12 before I set you loose?
Well, if we're looking at data points right now, it's hard to argue that Iowa State doesn't have the most impressive resume of any team. And when you go to Ireland and play in a weird game in international territory, and it's early, and you have no idea what your team is, like, they're very well coached. They beat Kansas State. I know Kansas State doesn't look great. They kind of look like a mess right now, but you still beat them. It was a ranked matchup, and it was the first game. And that could have derailed Kansas State to a degree, too. So let's not take away what Iowa State could have done to them to put them in a bad place. But then you win the rivalry game, the Cy-Hawk Trophy against Iowa, and you win on your home field. It's the first time that a home team has won in that series in the last 5 games. So you've beaten Iowa, and you represented the Big 12 against the Big 10. You beat Kansas State. You destroyed, I believe it was South Dakota, 55-7 or something like that in their FCS game. Iowa State seems like they're good, and that they're going to be tough and physical and well coached. So feel good about that one. I did a Big 12 power poll today. I put Utah number 2, and I think they deserve it. They embarrassed UCLA on the road. I know UCLA doesn't look great, but still, you got to go and perform. It's your first game. You look great. And then you handle Cal Poly. And you can flip-flop these 2 teams. I have TCU and BYU 3-4. TCU looked great against the weird North Carolina situation, Bill Belichick, and BYU hasn't really played anybody yet, but those are my top 4 teams right now, with Iowa State, Utah, BYU, and TCU. Texas Tech looks really good. Their offense, I don't know what they are defensively. Again, I can't wait to watch what they do against Utah. Then we get some really, impactful data points with that matchup between Utah and Texas Tech. After that, Kansas seems okay. I know they lost to Missouri. I still think Arizona State's a good team, even though they absolutely blew it in Starkville. I think they'll be tough. But that's probably who I'd have in my upper tier at this point.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for the time as always. Keep up the great work. And, you'll have to watch other teams this week, and then BYU's back at it. So we'll get you back on soon. Thanks, bud.
I appreciate it, Spence. Always good to talk to you, man.
All right, Spencer Litton, BYU TV. Live at the Dish Pros, 801-424-DISH, 801-424-DISH. Who's this dude? Who's my guy here?
That's my brother's dog.
Ah, what a cutie. What a cutie. All right, bottom line. We've been talking about why people should make the switch to Dish, and here's how I'll characterize it. Even if you're not going to save money, you should change over to that platform if you're a sports fan.
Yeah.
The good news is, with all the promotions, and one special one today, you should make the switch because you get all the games and you save a grip of money. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, and I've really just been kind of reeling because the ESPN Plus thing is really I think it's kind of blown people away that game was on ESPN Plus. But if you have Dish and you subscribe to ESPN Plus, it adds it right to the channel guide, and you could record it and you have all that access. This is an opportunity right now to save yourself some money, take advantage of the best promotion. Like, this promotion is so stacked that Dish has put together. Not only you get the 2-year promotional price, you get the price guarantee for that 2 years, but Dish is going to throw in the top package they have, free for 3 months. And then the NFL Red Zone, the multi-sports pack for 6 months, Showtime and Paramount Plus. I mean, it's just got so much on there. Plus, today and today only, We only got just just minutes left. If you call, you get $100 cash back. So it's a great opportunity to, get upgraded and, do what these customers have been doing. Another customer called in. It's going to save $100 over this whole thing with us helping them with the internet and with TV, and it's exciting that we could do this.
So I wanted to underscore one point. So what Ryan's referring to is last week, if you're a Utah football fan and you could not go to the game, you probably saw that Utah football was playing on ESPN Plus. Okay. So the problem is if you don't have Dish to access ESPN Plus, you probably had to hit input or stream it from your phone onto your TV, and therefore you couldn't switch back and forth to other games. But because I have Dish, I could watch Utah Cal Poly on ESPN Plus on Dish, then turn it over to watch Arizona State, Mississippi State, Florida, South Florida, and it was as if I was just changing channels as opposed to streaming something or hitting input to putting ESPN Plus on the TV. But you can also do that with Netflix. You can do that with YouTube. You can do it with other apps that are on the guide as if they're a channel.
Yeah, it makes it easy, and the best part is what you're saying is you can record it too. So call us up and take advantage of this killer opportunity. If you're a cable DirecTV customer, even a YouTube TV subscriber, you're going to save money. You get with all the credits that you're going to get, plus the 3 months free and the $100 cash back. It's going to be cheaper. And as far as if you're worried about a lot of cable customers, I want to change, but cable holds you hostage. They will literally tell you, oh, you're going to drop your TV, your internet's going to go from $70 to $90 a month, and you do not need to worry about that anymore. I have a whole bank of internet providers at our fingertips. I guarantee I've got one. I probably have 3 or 4 that'll work for you. Be lightning fast. It'll be $30 or $40 less than what you're currently paying, and it's easy to switch. And even if you have fiber, you can just pay a different provider and use the same fiber. Utopia is the same thing too.
So, excuse me. Finally, it is Tuesday afternoon. The games don't get going until Thursday. You call today. We got our guy Dave at your house tomorrow. Who's going to just install everything for you, and you can just sit back and watch the magic.
Yeah, just call us up, free install. We'll get everything all set up for you. You'll pay less money, and I'll mail you a check for $100. But you got to call right now.
That's right, $100 back in your pocket today. You get 3 months of Dish's best programming for free, and your price doesn't change for 2 years. It's a 2 years price guarantee. If you have a different service, I can promise you that your prices go up all the time because I had that once upon a time.
Yep.
We hit you with a lot of info, so call and ask questions, and they'll tell you what they can do for you. Here at the Dish Professionals, which is 801-424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Ryan, you're the man.
Thanks, man.
All right, we got 3 hours in the books. We got 1 hour to go. The 5 o'clock hour of the program comes your way. Coming up on the other side of a Tuesday edition of The Drive right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's go. Drive time. Drive at 5 time Tuesday afternoon, about 11 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Beautiful day today, about 82 degrees, a little wind, some cloud coverage, but gorgeous day outside. And as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. We're going to chat with Keith Kelly, who's the play-by-play voice of the Wyoming Cowboys. Utah takes on Wyoming on Saturday. 6 o'clock start. Our pregame coverage will begin at 2 o'clock. Porter will take care of you there. So stay tuned. We'll get to know the opponent a little bit better. The U.S. men's national team is about to kick off. RSL's Diego Luna is coming off the bench. RSL will be back in action on Saturday after the strangest 3-week break in MLS in late fall, late summer, early fall. A couple of pieces of news today. George Kittle is headed to the injured reserve. The 49ers are going to be without George Kittle for a number of weeks. They waived Jake Moody after Jake missed a couple of very embarrassing kicks. So if you're a Niners fan, maybe good and bad news today. And Jalen Carter will not be suspended after spitting on Dak Prescott. The NFL announced that the suspension is a 1-game suspension, and they're going to count the ejection since he missed basically the entire game as that suspension. Monday Night Football last night, J.J. McCarthy announcing his arrival on the scene. The Vikings get the win. Week 2 of pro football begins on Thursday with a really good game. Commanders-Packers, Lambeau Field, Green Bay, Wisconsin, on Prime Video, which you can find on Dish Network. Do you have Dish Network? Well, if you don't, you're doing it wrong. So dial 801-424-DISH, and my guy Ryan stops by for our final hit of the day today. All right, Ryan, bottom line, stack promotions, save a bunch of money, get all the games you want, including, by the way, hockey, Jazz. Like, we're football-centric right now, but if you're a local fan, you get all the hockey games, you get the Jazz games, obviously college and pro football. Tell us the deal.
Yeah, this is a neat opportunity, and, our phones are ringing off the hook today with this offer, and, we've had lots of customers saving lots of money, and our goal is to just help as many people as we can, and, super excited about the offer that we have with Dish, which is this great 2-year promotion, but the kicker is where they throw in the top package Dish has, free for 3 months. Throw in the NFL Red Zone, the multi-sports pack, free for 6 months. You get the you get some Showtime and Paramount Plus included for 4 months. And mentioning Paramount Plus, we talked about this. Streaming is something that you're not going to be able to get away with, and Amazon Video Prime is like a channel. So then when you want to watch Thursday Night Football, you just flip to the channel, and there it is on your Dish system. And same thing if you want to watch ESPN Plus. If you subscribe to it, it'll be on the guide, and exciting stuff that Dish has done. And today only, we're doing $100 cash back, and it's a great opportunity to put a whole bunch of cash back in your pocket.
Yeah, to underscore a couple things, $100 cash back today only. You've got like 20 minutes, so you should call right now. 3 months for free with Dish's top programming. And then if you have DirecTV or cable, when I say a 2-year price guarantee, that has to be music to your ears, because every 2 or 3 months, those rates go up.
They announced DirecTV's going up $11.
And they don't add anything.
Nope.
It'd be one thing to be like, hey, this new network. No, it's just like we're charging you more because we can. So that doesn't happen to you for 2 years. And then I wanted to underscore, so we'll take Thursday night as an example. Thursday Night Football, Prime Video. On the Dish guide, Prime Video is there as a channel, okay? Because Thursday night there are 4 other college football games. So what you can do on Thursday is you can actually flip back and forth between Thursday Night Football, ESPN, all the other college football games. Instead of having to pause, hit input, pull up Prime, stream it on your phone, it is on the guide as a channel, which is something the other platforms just don't have. So you're saving a grip of money today. You're getting a much better platform. We can install for you by tomorrow if you call right now, so you get it for the weekend. And if you're one of those people that think you're paying too much for internet, I promise you are. You can also help with that.
We've done so much. We almost should be called the internet professionals now. Just inked another deal with another internet provider. This puts us at 8 in Utah. And here's the thing: if you have fiber, or you're in Utopia, or you have cable, and you're in Utopia, you should be running to the phone immediately, because it's a massive difference, like $60 a month cheaper. Plus, you can get the first month free off with this new internet provider we have. So you can call around and call everybody and find out what the price, or you can just call us. We've got the same prices that they offer if you call them directly, and we'll plug in your address and go, yeah, you have this one, and this one, and these are the speeds, and we'll just dial you up. And it's a simple and easy solution. We've got tricks so you don't have to go through and change all your internet-connected devices. It'll just work, and you just pay less money and maybe faster speed.
So if you've been waiting to call, today's the day to pick up the phone. I mean, this is the best promotion that we've had. So bottom line, do it now at 801-424-DISH. 801-424-DISH, 801-424-3474. Ryan, you're the man.
Thanks, Spence.
All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, we'll get more information, scout the opponent for Utah. Okay, all right. We can end with some on the road again. We can end with some Willie. I'm okay with that. Porter, I have a moral question. I'm a little conflicted about a situation I'm running into. Are you ready for me to lay it on you?
Yes.
So I'm in 3 fantasy football leagues. It didn't go well for your boy week 1. Lost all 3 games. 1 league, lowest score. Thanks, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. One of my leagues I'm in with my nephews, and it's really fun. And one of my nephews takes it very seriously. And he just sent me a trade proposal that is very lopsided in my favor. As the adult, as the grown-up, is it my duty to inform him of what a horrible deal this is, or do I need to teach him a lesson in competition?
Yeah, no, it's neither, really. You don't need to necessarily teach him a lesson, but, I mean, you're in the big leagues now, brother. You can't, especially if the trade's been offered, you take that thing.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, and he's just going to have to learn a tough lesson. So there you go. All right, fun show, man. A lot going on. Obviously, it is a lively week. I want to remind you that our pregame coverage for Utah football with Porter. Do you have any information for us as far as what the listeners can expect coming up at 2 o'clock on Saturday?
Yeah, 2 o'clock from Laramie on Saturday, and we'll have Trevor Riley, we'll have Zach Moss, we'll have a cast of characters rolling by. We'll replay Kyle Whittingham's press conference. So anything you missed from the week, we'll get you ready for Utah Wyoming. A little abbreviated recap of the week, and looking forward to a matchup that I think will be a lot of fun. So yeah, we'll be going live about 2 o'clock here Mountain Time.
Special thanks to our friends here at the Dish Professionals. 801-424-DISH is the number. Porter, before we get out of here, what comes our way on a Wednesday edition of the show?
halfway through the work week, we will continue the college football conversation. Bill Riley joins the program, of course, the voice of the Utes. Danny Cannell joins the program. I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about the AP Top 25. Johnny Russell will join the program. Of course, RSL back in action over the weekend, and talk about all of that. Maybe some tennis too. Richard Smitty Smith on the show as well.
There you go. Back in studio for a Wednesday edition. Join us for that. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you to Keith Kelly, Quinn McLean, Bill Bush, and Spencer Linton. For any of the sound from the show you may have missed today, website is ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. Support our podcast page. If you like what we do, it actually does help. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. It helps. Reporter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Special thanks to Tanner, my on-site tech, our good friends at the Dish Pros. We'll talk to you on a Wednesday edition of the program. And as always, you can find that right here on ESPN 700.